official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
Let's get another look at traffic and weather together here, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents a gallon. Kind of an exhausting morning, Heather.
It was. We had quite a few things going on, and we have a new crash eastbound I-80 right near the 2300 East exit, just past the Sugar House area. Those vehicles over on the left shoulder, they're causing a little bit of slowing as traffic goes by. Our longest stretch of delays remain in Parley's Canyon eastbound from the East Canyon area all the way over to Parley's Summit, but the crash that caused that is completely gone now. And you still have delays on the west side belt, I-215, approaching the I-80 turnoff to the airport. That was due to the truck that had hay bales on it, and some of those hay bales went into traffic, but those are being cleaned up. Are you facing wage garnishment and threats from the IRS? Don't face the IRS alone. Call Utah tax attorney Jordan Wilcox. Visit taxhelput.com. That's taxhelput.com. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny skies today, just a very slight chance, about a 15% chance of showers through the middle part of the day, but we're going to lock in these temperatures between 92 and 95 degrees for the next 7 days. Monsoonal moisture headed back our way Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And right now in Salt Lake City, it is 73 degrees. From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, I'm Tim Hughes. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
The Associated Press is reporting that there's been at least one arrest made in connection to the death of Friends actor Matthew Perry, and NBC is reporting that multiple people, Dave, have been charged in connection with his overdose death. And that a federal indictment is expected to be unsealed a little later on today. This is a new development. I remember when he passed away last October. He's so young, 54 years old, so popular, so amazing.
Chandler
on
Bing.
Yeah,
and this is something that he struggled with. He struggled with addiction and abuse for years, and we're starting to learn more about this because the coroner said it was he deemed it an accidental overdose, but now at least one arrest has been made in connection to his death. We'll learn more throughout the show. It's 9:07. It's time for the launch.
Sequence engaged.
And here are 3 things that Debbie wants you to know.
Countdown. 3.
All right, if you're buying or selling a home, if you know somebody who's buying or selling a home, your kids are interested in buying or selling a home, there are some new real estate rules that are going to take effect this week. We'll be live with the Utah Association of Realtors. They're going to join us today in the 10 o'clock hour, Dave, in studio. And we're going to ask questions about, how and if this will impact buyers and sellers.
The real estate game has been a frustration, I think, for buyers and sellers for so long, just because it's such an eye-popping number. 6% of your sales price goes to realtor fees. That is tens of thousands of dollars that's going to realtors. Is there a better way to do it? There has been some tweaks. We'll walk you through those.
Countdown. 2.
We're watching the pendulum swing in New York. Think back just 2 years ago. They had a statewide mask mandate that carried a possible $1,000 fine per incident.
So you didn't wear a mask this week, huh? Not on Monday or Tuesday?
Now, one New York county is banning them.
There's an ulterior motive behind those masks, and they need to be called out and banned and arrested on the spot.
Some residents not happy about this.
Police are not health professionals. They shouldn't be in charge of who gets to wear a mask.
I have whiplash. What are we doing with masks, folks? Are they illegal? Are they... Okay, this isn't necessarily the COVID masks. It's the ski mask that is covering your entire face, your identity. Nobody knows who you are. That's what they're talking about. Is anonymity dangerous? Yeah, it can be.
Launch. Countdown. 1.
How far is too far for 6-year-olds to walk to school? Well, a boundary shift in one school district has a mom worried about how far her twins will have to walk. Well, the law is what the law is.
A mile is far. Like, you're wanting them to walk a mile at 7 a.m., do an 8-hour school day, and then walk home, and then possibly have homework. They're tired. They're sick.
So we drive them. Mom, you are not alone. This is the same argument we've made in our own brains for years. It's why we pack our kids up, we drive them, we find a way to pick them up, we coordinate grandparents or friends. But it is a mile? Is a mile and a half really too far for our kids to walk? No, of course it's not. We're just soft.
Dave and Dujanovic.
The Launch.
Commence.
Back to school. Special coverage with Dave and Dujanovic.
Too soft. And I have walked a mile in this mom's shoes. I was like, oh.
Totally.
There's no way I mean, how am I going to juggle all this? We're both working. Grandma and Grandpa aren't available. And it's too far for the kids to walk. I just feel so uneasy about sending my kids down the block and then another block and then another block and then an 8+ blocks to get to school. So Mom asks, where's the school bus? Where is it? She found out they don't quite live far enough for her 6-year-old twins to catch the bus. But they do live more than a mile away from the school, she says. And they work early in the morning, and the kids are going to have to walk.
We've been struggling with this. Like our family, we've totally been here because we lived a little over a mile away from our school. You know how many times we drove our kids? 1 million times. We've totally said either out of convenience because the kids woke up late. Maybe we were a little concerned. We didn't want them to get a chill because it was a little bit drizzly outside. I think we've done this 1 million times here in Utah, but I think we need to re-examine whether or not we should ask the school district to change everything about their busing system to make sure that little Johnny, little buddy, doesn't have to walk more than a mile to school.
What brought this on? Boundary changes, though. If you've been ensnared in a boundary change as parents, it's like, oh, everything was set for the last couple of years, and now we don't have a bus because we're outside the boundary of the new school that we got shifted to. Well, Mom Lisa Freeman spoke with KSL News Radio by phone about how they ended up in this spot. And yeah, it started with boundary changes.
They didn't have a bus system in place last year because none of their students needed it. And they built a couple new schools in our area, which changed our boundary. And so instead of our boundary was at Midland Elementary, and instead of Midland kids being able to go to Midland next year, they're being forced to go to Freedom Elementary because they changed the boundaries. Freedom didn't have a bus system. I asked them last year, it's like, well, my kids will need to take the bus. We're over a mile away. How do we get a bus going? So they gave us the transportation information. We called transportation. They looked up where our house is to the school, and they said that we're less than a mile and a half from the school, but we're still more than a mile from the school. So my 6-year-olds can walk to school just fine. They are within walking range, and they will not provide buses if it's less than a mile and a half from the school.
A mile and a half. Yeah, a mile and a half has been the standard for a while now that I know of, because school districts cannot possibly drive 1 block away from the school, pick up your kid, and drop them off. You have to figure out, okay, there's a certain amount of proximity where the parents have to be responsible, where the kids can just walk to school. Now, is it a mile and a half too far? Okay, maybe that's a fair question to ask. Maybe we're asking too much of kindergartners, of 6-year-olds or 7-year-olds to ask them to travel a mile and a half. But we do have to draw a line at some point and say, no, parents, this one falls on you.
This story is coming to us from the Weber School District. Of course, a lot of parents are probably going, yeah, this is happening to me too. I feel like we're too far away from the school for the kids to walk safely. I'm in a dilemma with my schedule day in and day out to be able to pick them up from school or drop them off at school. And on top of it, we just live like too far. So what is the rule for kids to get bused? We'll go live next with the Weber School District and ask them.
Dave and Dujanovic.
A lot of us are filling our workdays with podcasts.
When you're working, go to KSLNewsRadio.com.
Click on Dave and Debbie's podcast and pick a topic and story length.
Podcast with Dave and Debbie. Then get to work with KSL News Radio.
The KSL News Radio app will update you on breaking stories.
Intense rain canceled outdoor events. Consumers are cutting back on spending.
The offensive took President Vladimir Putin by surprise.
And you'll get exclusive audio streams from local events and sports.
Smith Entertainment Group has officially broken ground.
I think all the quarterbacks have gotten better and some good talent on the field.
All of your favorite KSL hosts are there too, so you can listen anytime. Plus traffic and weather. Download it today, the app for KSL News Radio.
When I joined Salt Lake City Fat Loss, it was with the understanding that they had a secret, because they told me they had a secret of losing up to a pound of fat every single day. Now, the reason I thought that was so important is because I needed to see big results. I tried to lose weight on my own, just track my own calories, try to eat healthy, but I wasn't seeing big changes. And I knew that to stay motivated, to stay on a program, I would have to see big changes. And with Salt Lake City Fat Loss, I did. I saw some huge changes. In just the first 3 weeks, I lost 25 pounds. Over 2 months, I lost 57. And because I was seeing those incredible changes, and I was excited to step on the scale. When was the last time you said that? Like, I was excited to step on the scale in the morning because the results were so fantastic. And I did it safely, effectively, without any surgery, without any injections. So if you're interested and you want to lose some weight, go ahead and check out Salt Lake City Fat Loss. If you use my name, Dave, you're going to get an extra $200 off. Just go to their website, schedule that free consultation at slcfatloss.com.
Are you within 5 years of filing for Social Security? Get this. 96% of Americans forfeit an average of $111,000 in Social Security income. And it's all because they filed for their benefits at the wrong time. Learn how you could avoid this with a free, customized Social Security analysis from Boss Retirement Solutions, 5-time winners of the Best of State Award. If you've saved more than $200,000 for retirement and have not filed for Social Security, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-896-9622. For some people, filing for Social Security early could result in more net income in retirement. Discover how you could get the most income from Social Security. Call 801-896-9622. 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
If you're looking for the perfect balance in a perfect meal, you're looking for Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. You're going to love the incredible choices. They've got it all, of course. It's a steakhouse, but they also have seafood and poultry, all kinds of amazing side dishes, and the desserts are absolutely off the chart. Incredible choices are waiting for you right now at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. And it's been a long summer. The kids are getting back in school. It's time for you to have a break. Make your reservation now for Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and let the pros do all the work. And they have 2 locations, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse in Hotel Park City and right in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City at 275 Southwest Temple. And don't forget, if you're planning for a party, a special event, a celebration, or a birthday, whatever it might be, it's time to contact Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, Park City and downtown Salt Lake City.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. Did you know that we offer 3 distinct styles of gutter protection? Each one meant to handle a specific leaf problem. You might not even know there are different styles of gutter protection, but there are. And if you pick the wrong one, it could be a huge waste of money. Now, the big gutter guard companies won't tell you this. They try to sell you a one-size-fits-all gutter guard. And it could be completely wrong for the amount and types of trees and leaves you have. Not RGS Exteriors. We understand which kind of leaf problem needs which kind of gutter guard. We'll do an in-depth evaluation to assess the types, locations, and numbers of trees in your yard. Based on that data, we match your home to the right gutter guard. So don't risk wasting money on the wrong gutter protection. For a free evaluation and estimate, call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or visit rgsexteriors.com. That's 801-280-3110 or rgsexteriors.com.
Beehive Plumbing now offers premier service. 10 years of coverage on both parts and labor. Call or visit beehivepremier.com for expert experience every time.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Tim Hughes. First, some of the state's biggest school districts head back to school today, including the Alpine and Davis districts. Second, Tim Walz and J.D. Vance have agreed to a debate as vice presidential nominees. It's going to be hosted by CBS on October 1st. And third, Utah ranks 15th when it comes to spending the most money on groceries. We're going to look for a high today in the lower 90s, and right now 73 in Salt Lake City. Now back to David Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic. Back to school. Special coverage with Dave and Dujanovic.
Where's the school bus? I think a lot of parents, I know this is such a dilemma. When my kids were in elementary school, they had to walk. Mom worked, dad worked. One mom up in the Weber district, Dave, and we're talking about her dilemma, found out family doesn't quite live far enough for her 6-year-old twins to catch a bus or be entitled to a bus. But they do live more than a mile away from the school, she says, so kids are going to have to walk. She's worried about that.
So I do want to know from parents, because I have felt that way. My wife has. I'm not judging in any way. I think we just need to re-examine how far are we willing to let our kids walk. So you had a school that was really very, very close to your house. It was like across the street.
Yeah, once we took them out of the private school they were in Sandy, where I drove them every day, and we had a pickup dilemma. We just always, it was like air traffic control, right? We're trying to land cars for pickup at the right time, but eventually, when we moved them to public school, we were able to they were right across the street from the school.
And at least for junior high, that block or two, that was nothing.
No, it wasn't a block.
there's certainly an amount that we're comfortable with our kids traveling. So maybe it's 2 blocks or 4 blocks. Well, what's the difference? What really changes between 4 blocks and 8 blocks, or 8 blocks and 16? You're still crossing streets. You still have to use crosswalks. It's just maybe more opportunities. But I think we're a little bit soft as parents. And we're so afraid of something happening, as unlikely as it is. We're so afraid we will move mountains. And we do move mountains to drop our kids off and get them picked up.
Here's what Mom Lisa Freeman told KSL News Radio when she spoke to us by phone about the dilemma that she's in. And this really began to happen to her family when they implemented boundary changes in the Weber district.
And they said that we're less than 1.5 miles from the school, but we're still more than 1 mile from the school. So my 6-year-olds can walk to school just fine. They are within walking range, and they will not provide buses if it's less than 1.5 miles from the school.
Joining us right now is Lane Finlay from the Weber School District. Lane, has this been the standard for a while, 1.5 miles? Anyone that lives inside of that 1.5 mile radius has to essentially figure out their own way to get their kids to school?
Yeah, that's correct for elementary. That's long been rooted in state law, USB policy, and district policy as well. You have a 1.5 mile distance for elementary, and then for junior highs and high schools, the distance increases to 2 miles.
Is there a way to make any exceptions in those rules?
Well, that's a very common question that comes up. A lot of it is rooted in state funding because it's reimbursed transportation costs through the state. And so those standards are set in state law as well as board rule and district policy. There are a few exceptions that can come into play. One of those is if it's determined that we have some capacity on a bus, there is a process for parents to be able to apply for an exception if they live within the walking zone. And if we do have some capacity, there are a few cases where we may be able to transport a few students that live within a walk zone. But it's determined primarily by the furthest distance from the school. So those kids that live the farthest away could possibly be granted an exception, but it's case by case, and it really does come down to capacity. We run over 150 buses and transport almost 24,000 students every school day.
So there's obviously a lot of money, time, resources spent to bus. For those that live inside of that 1.5 mile radius, are there any resources or is any money being spent to make sure that inside that 1.5 miles that there are more crossing guards or the dangerous streets you can redirect the kids? Do we spend any money on that?
Yeah, so there's a program, it's called Safe Routes to Schools, and when you're talking about infrastructure, so crossings, sidewalks, crossing guards, those are all outside the authority of the school district, so we really have no jurisdiction, and that falls to the local municipalities, so the cities or the county or the state. So if there is a need for, let's say, adding sidewalks or adding an additional crossing or assigning a crossing guard to a particular intersection or crossing, that's all managed through those local municipalities, not the school district.
How does a school like Freedom Elementary, where Lisa Freeman's 6-year-old twins are walking to, and let me just play this, Lane, audio clip. She leaves for work, it sounds like really early in the morning, and so does her husband.
I leave the house at 5:30 a.m. My husband has to be at work by 7 a.m. School doesn't start until 7:45. So we would have to take off work just to get them to school. And then the high schoolers start at 7 or something like that. So even our high schooler can't even get them to school on time. Like, we need a bus.
So how will Freedom Elementary, where kids are walking to, or 6-year-old kids are walking to, alert her if there's a problem and they don't make it to school for some reason?
Yeah, when the student arrives, or let's just say they're absent, and the school will notify parents if the student is absent for that day, and that is, it's a legitimate concern. When we're talking about those walk zones, I mean, ultimately it does fall back on parents. They're the ones that'll be responsible for getting their children to and from school if they live within those walk zones.
And just sorry, Dave. The boundary changes are always a concern. I know this from being an education reporter back in the early 90s. When there were boundary changes, this does end up kind of shaking things up for families. But are these busing issues taken into account? That now there's a lot of families that will end up being stuck without buses?
Yeah, it's been a concern, especially for us this school year. We're in the process of opening 3 brand new schools out in the West area. And whenever you open up a new school, it affects all of the schools around it as far as boundaries. And so we went through a massive boundary realignment this year in the school district. And so that has affected a lot of families and a lot of our different schools, not just the new ones that are opening. And so it's been particularly challenging this year, and we certainly understand that change is hard for people, and it's been pretty extensive as far as the different changes that have been made with those new schools opening.
Lane Findley, thank you for joining us with the Weber School District.
Is the 1.5 miles too far for kids to walk? That's the question.
It really is the question, and I think a lot of parents think it is, but quite frankly, it's not. I don't think asking a a 6-year-old or even a 10-year-old. And we have some studies, we'll bring this up in the next segment, that say, yeah, that's a reasonable age to ask an 8-year-old or a 6-year-old to walk 1.5 miles. I just think out of convenience, speaking for me personally, we found it more convenient to just drive them than to teach them and train them to walk to school. Because then we have to wake them up on time.
Let's take live phone calls. Is 1.5 miles too far for kids to walk to school? 801-575-TALK. 801-575-TALK. I see your texts. They're dropping in. So give us a call. Let's put you on the radio next.
9:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Tim Hughes with a look at some of our top stories this half hour. The parents of 6-year-old twins at Freedom Elementary say their children will have to walk more than 1.5 miles to school every day.
And they're saying that for the distance, my kids will be safe to walk to and from school at the age of 6.
Dave and Debbie have been talking about it. That's Lisa Freeman, the twins' mom. Lane Finley from the Weber School District says a state law that went into effect in May only requires transportation if elementary school students live within 1.5 miles.
But if they're within that 1.5 miles, within the walk zone, then those kids are the ones that would walk to school.
Finley says exemptions can be made only for certain safety factors. Trends are moving in the wrong direction when it comes to driver safety. Colby Bentley with the Tooele Police Department says since the pandemic, he has seen a huge increase in reckless driving.
We had a pedestrian get hit out here the other day, and then it ended up losing his life. And it's through simple things that we can avoid these gigantic consequences.
Bentley said it used to be teenagers that were more likely to be reckless on the roads, but in recent years, adults are the main culprits. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Vice President Harris expected to roll out her economic policy tomorrow, which will include efforts to make food and groceries more affordable. According to her campaign, Harris would give the FTC and state attorneys general authority to investigate and impose penalties on corporations who unfairly drive up consumer costs. Your money at this moment. The markets are still in the green, and the Dow on the gain again. It's up 454 points this hour. The S&P is up 74, 1.4%, and the NASDAQ is now up 340 points. Coming up, a couple of days of sunshine, and then the monsoonal moisture sneaks back in here for your weekend activities. We'll take a look at it next. KSL News Time, 9:32.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Make the most of your summer plans with triple rewards from Cyprus Credit Union. This July and August, use your Cyprus Rewards Visa card to earn triple points for every $1 you spend on gas and travel. That's triple the points for hotels, flights, at the gas pump, and more. This offer lasts from now through August only, so make the most of your Cyprus Rewards Visa or apply today at cypruscu.com.
Cyprus Credit Union, your future is our future.
Equal Opportunity Lender.
This is Todd Frayton's heart. He's begun his wellness journey. This is its sound on a treadmill, at a slight incline, on a stroll through the forest. And this is the heart of Maria Sanchez, his physician. What's it doing here? A lot, actually. Because when we partner with you, we don't just offer a strategic plan and status updates. We put our hearts into it, beat for beat. We call it the power of we. Intermountain Health.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey, checking in?
This is not just your flu shot appointment at Walgreens.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is getting your entire family vaccinated in one trip.
Hey, Mom?
And a snack on the way out. Get flu shots for everyone in your family, together. Schedule appointments online today. This is wellness made easy. Walgreens.
Vaccine subject to availability and for ages 3+. State and health-related restrictions may apply.
That precious cool air inside your house shouldn't be seeping out through old drafty windows, but if it does, get stylish new windows and frames at factory direct pricing from Advanced Window Products. This is Jeff Kaplan. Advanced Window Products has been building windows here in Salt Lake City for 38 years, but even if you don't need windows, they can give your interior a fresh new look with blinds, shades, and shutters from Graber. They offer custom crafted window treatments featuring the trendiest designs, premium materials, and quality without compromise. Advanced Windows offers start-to-finish service with shorter lead times so you get your custom blinds, shades, and shutters sooner. Call them for a free in-home consultation with their designers. It's a no-pressure experience, and if you need new windows, $2,500 off on 10 windows or more, or if you need window treatments, it's Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or go to advancedwindowsusa.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents a gallon. We go back to Heather Kelly.
We've got a little bit of slowing southbound I-15 starting at Beck Street heading toward downtown Salt Lake. That was due to a minor fender bender that had been on the left shoulder, and UHP stopped everybody for a minute to get them moved off the freeway, but traffic is moving almost back to freeway speeds now. You also have the cleanup of hay bales of southbound I-215 right near 700 North. This is all over on the right shoulder. It's not really causing delays, but there is equipment moving around the right lane and the right shoulder, so just use caution. Why pay for 4 tires when you can buy 3 and get 1 free at your locally owned and operated Big O Tires? Now through August 27th, buy 3, get 1 free on select set of tires. Big O Tires, the team you trust. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny skies today. Highs going to pop up to about 94 degrees, and then we stay right there, 94, 95, 93, 92. No triple digits for the next 7 days. That's the good news, but there is rain returning, it looks like, Saturday, Sunday, and possibly lingering into Monday. Right now, 76 in Salt Lake City from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
As the kids head back to school this week and next, how far is too far? Is 1.5 miles too far for kids to be walking to school, specifically elementary school kids? A mom of 6-year-old twins says that's just too far for her kids to walk. They live beyond 1 mile, but under 1.5 miles from the school, so they don't get a bus.
1 mile is far. Like, you're wanting them to walk 1 mile at 7 a.m., do an 8-hour school day, and then walk home, and then possibly have homework?
I wanted to figure out how long it takes a kid to walk. I was curious. Like, if we were going to send a kid on 1.5 mile walk to school, would it be 2 hours later because those short little legs just can't travel as far? But there was a great blog, Jago.com, but they did a lot of extensive research on this, and they found that a 6-year-old can walk 1 mile in about 22 minutes, 22 to 30 minutes. But if you jump up to an 8-year-old, they walk the same speed as you and I, Deb. There's no difference. Yeah, an 8-year-old walks the same speed, or they at a moderate pace as an adult. So the time-wise is not that different.
We talked about this earlier in the week about the parent taxi. Unrelated to Lisa Freeman, the mom who called KSL News Radio about her twins having to walk over 1 mile because they don't live quite far enough away to get a school bus. And what we talked about on Tuesday was Psychology Today. There was an article that I'd caught, and it said one of the biggest barriers to kids walking independently is concerns about traffic, and parents' concerns specifically about their kids in traffic.
Yeah.
And they said, like, experts say that by the age of 8, most kids are capable of safely traveling to school alone.
So about second grade, alone.
Alone.
That's interesting.
8 is second grade or third grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. 801-575-TALK. We've got a long list of callers.
Howard in Springville. What do you think, Howard? Is 1.5 miles too long?
You know, I'm just a dumb old farm kid from Idaho, and we used to have to walk a long way. It wasn't uphill both ways, but if we wanted to get there in time, we had to leave a half an hour before we went to bed. So I think with the problems that we have with obesity, child obesity, and adult obesity, I think that 1.5 miles each way, twice a day, that's 6 miles, isn't such a bad idea.
Well, it's about somewhere between 45 minutes and maybe an hour to walk 1.5 miles for kids. You both, if you're to and fro. So do we really not? Are we concerned about our kids' little legs that they can't walk an hour a day?
I think it still goes back to the safety factor. Like 8 blocks, 9 blocks, 10 blocks, whatever the total amount is. As a mom, I sympathize with Lisa Freeman. My concern wouldn't be their little legs and getting worn down. My concern would be there's a lot that can go wrong every single day between point A and by the time they get to school. I would want to make sure the school was in tune with the fact that my kids were walking that far, and if they didn't show up, I wouldn't want them to post it on some website like I'm supposed to log into to find out that they've been marked absent. I would want a text message. Now, we talked to the Weber School District just moments ago, and they said that they keep track and that kind of. I just want to make sure there is direct communication. Like, hey, we know your kids walk a little ways, and they didn't get here. Now, most kids show up to school safely. I know that most people are like, oh, you're such a worrywart, Deb. These are the things moms worry about, right? I mean, these are the things we worry about. So I think that's where my concerns would lie, Dave. Not so much on whether my kids would get exhausted.
So it's not a physical thing. It's not being uncomfortable walking in the snow or the rain.
They would come home and run around the basement for 10 miles, throwing a Nerf ball. So I'm not worried about them wearing their little legs down. I would be worried about their safety. And also, like, what roads are they crossing? How busy is the traffic? All
Bob,
those things.
in Washington. Oh, Washington State. What do you think?
Yes. Well, I was a parent back in the late 70s, and things have changed an awful lot. We live now about 6 or 8 blocks from school because we're in kind of the suburbs, and that's not too far to walk. But I agree with the lady that called in, and I agree with Debbie also. Safety is a factor, and these days you can't be too careful, especially because you don't know who's lurking around, and I don't want to run the risk of a child, being abducted or even pestered.
Yeah. Well, and we talked the other day too about stranger abductions. They're very, very rare. Doesn't mean they don't happen. But thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. Bailey in Nephi. Hi. Is 1.5 miles too far for kids to walk to school?
Absolutely. Currently, like some of the other callers have said, my main concern is safety. And here in Nephi, our middle school, high school, and one of our elementary schools are all within a 0.5 mile radius of each other. And there are only really 2 main roads that you can take to get to those schools without driving through everybody's houses and swerving around subdivisions. And on those 2 roads, there are 7 intersections from my home, which is exactly 1.5 miles, the one route, and 1.9 the other route to my son's elementary school. And he is 7 years old, and my daughter just started kindergarten, and she is 5. And as a working mother and having my husband that works full time, most American families are having both parents having to go to work, and they rely on the busing system to get their kids there safely. And there are 7 intersections between my home and my son's elementary school, and there's only one place the whole direction that has a crosswalk to make sure that my children are getting across the road safely in between this intersections to get to his elementary school. And
Bailey, thank you. Sorry, we're running out of time, but I think you make a good point. There's a lot of roads leading into school that don't have safety at the top of their list. They don't have the appropriate sidewalks and infrastructure set up. And as we were talking to the Weber School District, they said that does not fall under the umbrella of the school district. That has to be addressed by the municipality. It has to be tackled by either the county or the city if there are safety concerns walking to school.
Is carpooling an option? Getting an area carpool together? We're going to dive into that tomorrow, and I'm going to tell you the struggles that I had trying to get a carpool together. We'll continue to follow this story out of the Weber School District throughout the day right here at KSL News Radio. And next, why Dave is dazzled by what Disney is doing with its theme parks. He's going to spill the tea, right?
Cool things happening at Disney. You're going to want to shell out some money for it.
Dave and Dujanovic.
You know KSL is the only news radio for your car, right?
The only news radio for your smart speaker.
Come here in the morning. It's the latest news and traffic. In the afternoon, news and updated weather.
We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
Soft water is not what you normally have in your home. You have to have a water softener installed. And my wife and I went several years without any soft water in our home. And then we started suffering some of the consequences. We have very dry skin. Hard water definitely led to drier skin. And in our dry climate here in Utah, as you felt the heat beating down on you all summer long, dry skin has been a real burden. Soft water makes a huge difference. In fact, when Kinetico of Utah installed our water softener, they told us you're going to be able to tell the first time you take a shower the difference that soft water makes, and it has been phenomenal. We've loved it. We invested. We looked at it as an investment in our home, not just in our health and to make our skin feel better, but it works with your laundry, your dishes, your water heater. All of these things are prolonged through with soft water because hard water can really cause buildups and stains that can be very expensive to replace. So if you're interested, go ahead and give Kinetico of Utah a call. Let them come out to your house, show you the difference that soft water can make and how many places it affects your life. 801-576-8600. That's 801-576-8600. They're an authorized Kinetico dealer, or you can check them out online at softwaterutah.com.
At KSL News Radio, we have a 30-year legacy of honoring Utah teachers, but we can't do it without your help. Please tell us about an important teacher in your life on the KSL Teacher Tribute Wall, presented by Cypress Credit Union. Each month, one lucky teacher wins a $500 gift card from Cypress Credit Union, a $250 gift card to Harmon's, plus season tickets to Hale Center Theater. Say thanks to your teacher today at kslnewsradio.com/teacher from Cypress Credit Union and KSL News Radio.
Tay-Tay was a typical girl that loved pink, singing, and all kinds of animals. At 3 years old, she tumbled off a horse and received a traumatic brain injury. Her family prayed for a miracle, and when they realized their daughter would not survive, they made the decision to donate her organs. Because of her donation, 4 other people received her organs and tissue, allowing others to live. Go to donorconnect.life and read about what it takes to become a donor. Did you know many people think that they're too old and not in good enough health to be a donor? Anyone can be a donor. If you were told that it could save a life for someone close to you, or even a stranger, would you please donate? Finding out more on why you should become a donor is pretty easy. DonorConnect.life can walk you through the process and what it takes to simply sign up. Check yes to become a donor when you renew your driver's license. Give hope, heal life. DonorConnect.life.
Life can feel hard or overwhelming sometimes, but you don't have to face things alone. Getting help for yourself or someone you're worried about starts with a call or text to 988, where you always have someone to talk to, someone to help you, and somewhere safe to go. 988 Utah is here for anyone experiencing mental health challenges or emotional distress. 988 Utah can even help you navigate how to support your struggling loved ones. Whether you're struggling with anxiety, depression, or suicidal thoughts, trained professionals are ready to listen and provide free, confidential support 24/7. Utah, don't hesitate to call or text 988 for you or someone you care about. The caring staff at 988 Utah can connect you to the right resources. Learn more at 988lifeline.org.
Master Electrical Services, home of the upfront pricing guarantee.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Tim Hughes. First, at least one person is in the hospital after a crash in Hobble Creek Canyon. The cause is under investigation. Second, Utah Senator Mike Lee says he's voting for Governor Spencer Cox after Phil Lyman announced his write-in campaign. And third, a Paralympic snowboarder jokes that he can now put firefighting on his resume after helping put out a truck fire on his way to train. We're going to look for a high today of 94, and right now in Salt Lake City, it is 76. Let's get you back to David Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Theme park revenues take a dive as inflation and high costs take a bite. That's the article from Yahoo Finance that caught Dave's attention because he thinks Disney has a plan to dazzle Dave and get his family all excited about getting back to Disneyland.
I have complained about Disneyland a fair amount. I will give you that. The bang for your buck, you know, how much it costs.
The banana.
My $9 banana and water, I will never forgive you for that.
I'll never forget it.
That's where you're going to make your money off of me, is by gouging me with a banana and water.
Can we just get clarification on that banana?
Okay.
Was it overripe or was it just perfect?
No, it was not perfect. No, it was overly ripe. Like just overly ripe enough.
I've never known. I've never in all these years we've been complaining about this, I've never asked you, was it like the perfect ripeness?
If I'm gonna pay $4.50 for bananas, I better get 17 pounds of them. Not one single solitary, not one banana. $4.50.
You want all the potassium.
I'm telling you, I better have been cramping, like in the middle of a leg cramp, to pay $4.50 for a banana.
So here's kind of the landscape of how things are going. Then we're going to let Dave dazzle us with all the Disney stuff he's been looking into. Utah's Morning News reporting that theme parks starting to struggle. We also were reporting on Disneyland about a week ago, and how expensive it can be in total between the cost of tickets, hundreds of dollars for those 3-day park hopper passes, plus hotel, plus souvenirs, plus breakfast with Cinderella. So Utah's Morning News saying Disney, Universal Studios, and Six Flags all reporting lower second quarter earnings. Universal Studios, haven't been there a lot. I think I've been there maybe one time. I mean, maybe when I was little. I don't know. Universal Studios seeing a 10.5% drop, 10.6%
Ooh, that's
drop.
a big one. Yeah.
So take it away, Dave. What are you seeing in terms of Disney dazzling you?
There's a few things. Obviously, you have to consistently update it. You can't just be It's a Small World from 1963. Like the tune is catchy,
ride,
but teacups can only take you so far. Some of the classics.
What about the Cars ride?
See, that's a new one. I mean, within the last several years.
Okay.
But yeah, Cars Land, they expanded, and so when they're adding these attractions, it gets you excited again. Universal Studios, you say they're down 10%. Well, they brought in Harry Potter World, which is incredible. If you're a Harry Potter fan, this is your nirvana. This is heaven. It was unbelievable. You get to buy $150 wand. You talk about gouging. I buy like 6 wands? Yeah. So you buy an expensive wand, you get to wave it and cast spells, and things happen in the park. It's incredible. So you're constantly trying to update. Well, Disney just made a bunch of announcements of new things they're going to do.
All right.
Not just at their parks, but new movies that are coming out. Are you ready for this? I know you love movies. Disney is going to produce a Toy Story 5.
I didn't know there was a 3 and 4.
Yeah. Toy Story 1 and 2, total classics. They were good. But Toy Story 5 is coming out. Incredibles 3 is coming out. They're spending some more money. They're going to do some stage productions. The Greatest Showman is going to be a stage production. Hercules, Frozen. Those are going to come to. Yeah, it's a little. We'll see how good it is, where it ends up. But yeah, they're going to have some stage productions.
I bet you the kids would love those.
Oh, they would love them.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, The Greatest Showman, sign me up right now. It's incredible. But the biggies, I think this is where I saw the aha moment for me. I thought, oh yeah, this will get the Noriegas out there, even if we have to pack a cheaper banana. So what is it called? D23. They kind of do this announcement. Hey, this is all the cool stuff that's happening. That's where I pulled all this information. Disney 23. They announced the coolest expansion in Disney that I can remember. Like, Cars Land's cool. The new Star Wars rides, those are cool. Is there anything better? And I can't believe they haven't done this for years and years ago. Villains Land. All of the Disney villains, and they're going to create an entire area in Disney for the villains. Ursula, Maleficent, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall.
Is that like the Haunted Mansion ride?
They're going to keep the Haunted Mansion.
Okay.
But yeah, they're going to create an entire area of the park dedicated to all the villains. So you'll be able to. Who knows what it's actually going to look out, but it's kind of dark and brooding and moody from some of the renderings I saw. I'd spend an entire day there. The best thing about Disney movies, I will tell you, when I'm watching a show, it's all about the villain. I don't care about the protagonist. I don't care about the hero. You give me a great villain. You give me a Captain Hook. You give me an Ursula. I am all in. This will get us back out to California.
Is that all you got?
How much more do you want from me?
I love your enthusiasm. I do get concerned about the total ticket prices, though, and we've talked about that very recently. It could be hundreds of dollars just for like a 3-day pass, and it's a park hopper. And we did the math with your family, all 6 of you.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to get the more extensive passes, would be $3,000.
Yeah.
3,000.
Well, and that's just for the pass. If you want to get like the super uber, fast pass, then just double that. They have little enhancements. If you want to jump to the front of the line, then you can buy your way into it. So yes, it is outrageously expensive. It's not a Taylor ticket expensive, Taylor Swift ticket expensive, but yeah, it's incredibly expensive. You wanted one more. You're so greedy. I gave you a plethora of things to drag you back out to Disney. How about this one? Monsters, Inc. Land, where they will have a suspended roller coaster. Do you remember in Monsters, Inc., the doors that are just like running through the entire...
Oh, yeah.
They're going to make that into a roller coaster.
Of course.
That will be incredible.
Of course. Of course you would. Yeah. I'll go.
I can't believe it took them this long.
I'll go for that.
I love roller coasters. Roller coasters for days.
Well, so there's 2 teams right now in New York. Team 1 just banned wearing a mask.
There's an ulterior motive behind those masks, and they need to be called out and banned and arrested on the spot.
Team 2, it's none of your business.
Police are not health professionals. They shouldn't be in charge of who gets to wear a mask.
Straight ahead, we're going to tell you why one New York county has outlawed wearing a mask.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 10 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. A new report from consumer solutions company Trace One says Utahns spend more than most Americans on groceries. We're also spending more annually than we were just 2 years ago by more than $1,000. Utah's above-average household size could be playing a part in that. Provo will soon open a new sports park that's touted as being the biggest in Utah. KSL News Radio's Tammy Kikuchi reports.
It will be epic, literally. That's the name of the new sports park, which will have 21 soccer fields and 45 pickleball courts, in addition to many other amenities. City economic development officials expect the park to pump $30 to $40 million into the local economy every year. In addition to soccer tournaments, there will also be pickleball, rugby, lacrosse, and other sports tournaments.
City planners point out it'll be close to the Provo airport, a plus for people traveling to tournaments. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Ukrainian forces are pushing farther into Russia now and using drones to attack 4 Russian airfields. They're also saying they've captured 100 Russian fighters as part of their surprise operation across the border. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average having another up day, 446 points higher than when we started this morning. NASDAQ up 358 right now. And our KSL weather, it's going to dry out today and tomorrow. That's next. KSL News Time, 10:01.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Tommy! I can't wait for golf this weekend, huh, buddy? Time flies. Love you, man. Oh, don't forget your knee brace again. We aren't in college anymore.
Moments together matter, so help protect yourself from RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV, and there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Lowe's knows our great paint savings mean you can get the colors you want at prices you'll love. Right now, get 20% off 1-gallon cans and 5-gallon pails of Valspar Defense paint or Cabot Stain. Shop now because it's the perfect time to maintain your deck and paint your outdoor spaces. Visit us in-store or online today because Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 8/21. Selection varies by location. See store at Lowe's.com for details.
Hey, I'm Jake Harward. I'm a farmer, and folks often ask me how we are able to have the freshest corn all the way to October. That's easy. We stagger our plantings. For example, this field will be perfect to pick in 2 or 3 weeks, and that field over there, not until mid-September. Stop by our green roadside stands for our picked fresh everyday non-GMO sweet corn, tomatoes, peaches, cantaloupe, and watermelon. Go online to harwardfarms.com for a complete list of our 21 locations around Utah. Fresh from our family's farm to your family's dinner table.
Harward Farms. For the right repair and the right paint, the right choice is manufacturer-certified Martins Collision Repair. Hi, I'm Tiago Martins. Many shops have ASC and ICAR certified technicians, but few have certifications by General Motors, Nissan, Chrysler, Hyundai, Jeep, and many others, making Martins your right choice. Online at martinscollision.com, on State Street in Orem and in Salem, we work with all insurance companies.
The right repair, the right paint, the right choice. Martins Collision Repair.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Heather Kelly.
Well, things are finally moving much smoothly on all the roadways across the Wasatch Front. The last of the hay has been picked up off of I-215's West Belt. We had a couple of very large bales go into traffic earlier in the commute. It's all gone. All the vehicles are gone. You also have good speeds through Parley's Canyon, where we had a pretty bad crash earlier with all lanes blocked, and everybody's going at speed to and from Park City. Why pay for 4 tires when you can buy 3 and get 1 free at your locally owned and operated Big O Tires? Now through August 27th, buy 3, get 1 free on select sets of tires. Big O Tires, the team you trust. I'm Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny today and tomorrow with highs in the mid-90s, and there's a chance of thunderstorms again on Saturday and Sunday. Right now we're at 79 degrees. It's partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
Remember when there was a face mask mandate? Well, in New York, in one New York county anyway, they're telling folks if you wear a face mask, you could be in for some big penalties, like up to a year in jail and a $1,000 fine for wearing a face mask.
Holy smokes, New York. Figure it out. It was 2 years ago, there was a statewide mask mandate. I mean, that's incredible. A mask, you had to wear a mask. Now, given this was over COVID, but now we're making it illegal to wear masks.
We're going to get KSL legal analyst Greg Skordas to join us, give us his take on this. But first, let's turn to NBC News. They did an in-depth report on what this is all about.
Not long after Nassau's mask ban became law today, we met Lisa Dresner, a teacher wearing a mask and wondering if she's now violating county law.
I know that there is some vague exception for medical conditions, but I don't know if I fit under that or not. So I think it would be somewhat better not to have that.
We're not looking to lock up innocent people.
Nassau's county executive says the mask ban is aimed at those intent on committing crimes while hiding their faces. Nassau police, he says, will make the ultimate determination.
They can sniff out somebody who's lying in most circumstances, and this gives them the ability to stop them and ask them, what are you doing?
Police are not health professionals. They shouldn't be in charge of who gets to wear a mask.
Beth Harulas of the New York Civil Liberties Union says the law really targets political protesters who have a right to their anonymity. The ban, she argues, will lead to selective police enforcement.
This is infringing on people's freedom.
The whole idea of being able to identify criminals or, bad characters, the face masks make it almost impossible.
As neighbors debate the merits of this county law, supporters today called for a statewide mask ban. Among them, a Lawrence native beaten 3 years ago by masked men because he's Jewish.
There's an ulterior motive behind those masks, and they need to be called out and banned and arrested on the spot.
If I'm at a restaurant on a hot summer day, somebody walks in with a ski mask covering their face, do I think something's going to go down? Yeah, of course. Now, has that ever happened at TGI Fridays? I've never seen that. But maybe it is the protest angle. If you've got protesters, if you've got people that are getting a little raucous and they are hiding behind the mask, does that increase how dangerous a situation is? Yeah, do people behave differently if they think they have anonymity? Yeah, of course.
When I first heard this story, my mind went, what about, somebody who wants to protect themselves because they have an autoimmune disease, or maybe they're sick and they don't want to get somebody else sick, or they have a religious reason to cover their face. Let's ask KSL legal analyst Greg Skordas to join in. What's your hot take from a legal perspective on this county's mask ban? I guess it's a mask ban.
Band-aid. Band-aid is what we're calling it.
I'm experiencing the whiplash Dave said he had earlier when we were talking about this, Greg.
I know, and I was involved with the mask mandate matters here in Utah, so I'm looking at this from the flip side. But it's a response to the Israeli-Hamas conflict, which began on October 7th, and what happened at colleges and universities, especially in New York, at Columbia College, where people wore masks to make anti-Semitic and other threats and comments. And so they're trying to react to that. The problem, as you both already stated, is that there are people that wear masks for health reasons or for religious reasons, and that the statute does intend to provide an exception for those things, but it's still going to be very hard because of those exceptions for police to sort out who is violating the law and who's wearing a mask for health or religious reasons. So it's going to be very hard to enforce. It may not be enforceable at all because people aren't always required to, expose their faces. I mean, you can say at a bank or at an event center, hey, you can't wear a mask into this facility. And then people can have the choice whether they want to wear a mask and not enter the facility or not wear a mask and enter the facility. So it'd be sort of a consensual thing at that point. But if you just say, if you're walking the streets in Nassau County and you are wearing a mask, you're committing a misdemeanor, that's quite a stretch.
If we are narrowing it down to protests where you have a gathering, does a protester have a right to anonymity?
Sure, and they probably should. A peaceful protester does. I mean, a person who's committing a crime may not, Dave. It's a great question, and that's sort of where we have the problem is because these protests cross the line once in a while between peaceful protest and misdemeanor riot or even more serious riot. We, as schools, are trying to break that determination and try to break down that determination, I should say, to help law enforcement decide what's happening. But this mask policy, this mask preclusion, is not going to solve that problem. And it may give law enforcement a little more leeway in sort of identifying people who are doing things they shouldn't be doing. But again, we don't have a constitutional law enforcement doesn't have a constitutional right to know your identity when you're not committing a crime.
It's called the Mask Transparency Act. It went into effect in one county in New York. It makes it a misdemeanor for anyone to wear a facial covering to hide their identity in public, mainly directed at protesters. And they said in this law that there are exemptions for religious or medical reasons. And Greg, I'm not a lawyer, but sometimes I just think like one. I was like, when is the first case? When is the first test case going to land in court on this? You'd have to have somebody arrested, right, for doing this or cited for doing this, right, before there could possibly be somebody who could be a part of a case that would test this law.
Right. You'd have to have somebody with standing. So a person who would be accused, charged with a misdemeanor for wearing a mask at a protest and say, look, I had the right to wear the mask. You don't have the right to force me not to, and challenge that in a court of law. I don't think you can preemptively challenge the law, but it wouldn't be hard, and it's not going to take long probably for the first person to get arrested for this crime because it is just a misdemeanor. And so I'm sure there will be people that will test the boundaries of it and say, okay, law enforcement, bring it on, and then take the case up to the New York Court of Appeals or Supreme Court or who knows where it could end up. But yeah, this law is probably not going to be around in a year because of all that.
Greg, I want to play a little bit from somebody that was at this press conference. He's a Jewish man that was assaulted, beaten up by men wearing masks.
There's an ulterior motive behind those masks, and they need to be called out and banned and arrested on the spot.
And the frustration was justice was never found. He was just beaten up, and they couldn't determine who his attackers were because of the masks.
And I completely understand that. I mean, but beating somebody is a crime in and of itself. The mask has nothing to do with it, although it does obviously make it much more difficult to identify the perpetrator. We saw that with the January 6th insurrection. A lot of those people wore masks, and they're still trying to figure out who some of the individuals were. So maybe you could limit the masks to say, look, if you're on the campus and you're in the protest zone, you cannot wear a mask. And I think something like that would be constitutional and would be legal. But just an outright requirement that person can't wear a mask is probably not going to hold water.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Walking down the street, you can, but maybe if you are joining a protest, a sanctioned or official protest, sounds like maybe there would be more standing or more weight behind that law. Greg,
exactly.
Thank you for joining us. Greg Skordas, our KSL legal analyst.
Straight ahead, we heard from parents yesterday on the show about some concerns they had over class sizes. For example, at Farmington Elementary, the fifth grade classes, there are 2 fifth grade classes with a total of 74 kids. Divide that in half, it's 37 kids per teacher. So next, we're going to speak to House Majority Leader Jefferson Moss to ask if the Utah legislature can do anything to address the concerns of large class sizes.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Dave and Debbie go out of their way to make sure you hear all sides of a story.
They're working the phones to get several viewpoints on for you.
Hi, it's Tim and Amanda. We get you the full story, too.
We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Summer recess is ending.
The first of 24 Utah school districts is welcoming their students back to the classroom.
And it's not just kids dreading the first day.
This year, parents are expecting to spend $875 on back to school.
Rely on KSL to stay out of the red.
Lean into shopping secondhand. I do it all the time. I've done it for years.
We have you covered for back to school this week on KSL News Radio.
Hello, it's Congressman Blakemore here. It's my honor to represent the men and women at Hill Air Force Base and advocate for Northern Utah's defense community. This year, I was grateful to secure several wins for Hill in the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2025, including a pay raise for junior uniformed airmen, authorization for 2 military construction projects, and full funding for the Sentinel program, which will provide thousands of Utah jobs, modernize our ground-based intercontinental ballistic missile program, and usher in a new era of nuclear deterrence. My bill, called the Retained Skilled Veterans Act, was also included in the NDAA to remove the arbitrary 180-day waiting period for veterans who are seeking to transition to civilian service at the DoD after their time in uniform. My team and I are working hard, coordinating with Hill Air Force Base leadership and finding solutions to their needs and challenges. It's an honor to serve those who serve our nation, and I encourage all our service members and veterans to reach out at blakemore.house.gov if we can be assistance to you. Paid for with official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
I want to talk about some healthy minds here, folks, and 988. Do you know when to dial 988? Rachel Lusinski joins us right now as a director over at Huntsman Mental Health Institute. Rachel, thanks for joining us. Can you remind our listeners, what is 988?
Good morning, and thanks for having me. 988 is the 3-digit number where you can access the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. So folks may know that in 2022, the 3-digit number launched and went live, and this changed the 10-digit code to access the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline to a much easier to remember 3-digit number. So folks are able in Utah to call that and be connected to the Utah crisis line, and that's staffed 24/7. It's available at no cost, and our team is here around the clock, ready and available to provide support for folks that are having mental health crises, emotional struggles, or maybe even contemplating thoughts of harming themselves.
When somebody dials 988, Rachel, how long does somebody stay on the line with them?
They stay on the line until the situation's resolved. So for some people, that might be a few minutes. They might need connection to information or resources in their community for mental health supports. For some folks, they might need life-saving intervention, and that can take much longer. Looking at our call statistics, we see that on average, our phone calls are lasting around 15 to 20 minutes. And so we really work, our team works to answer the call, make sure they understand what's the situation that's causing distress, how can we help work through that and de-escalate those concerns, find out what the level of risk might be and what the appropriate response is. But our goal is always to make sure that people feel heard, supported, and like they have access to real-time support. And we work to keep folks in the least restrictive level of care. So if you call 988, it does not mean a law enforcement officer is going to knock on your door. It does not mean you have to go to the hospital. We really work to de-escalate that situation and give folks the support they need in the most appropriate, least restrictive way possible.
We're speaking with Rachel Lusinski right now at the Huntsman Mental Health Institute. When should I call? How serious or how bad does it need to get before I dial 988?
If you're thinking about calling 988, that's the time that you should call. With the name Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, people think they have to be actively suicidal or ready to hurt themselves to make that call. And we really love to focus on prevention instead of intervention as much as possible. So anytime you're feeling overwhelmed, if there's a situation that's causing a lot of stress, whether that's job loss, a breakup or a divorce, maybe you had a really bad day and you got a flat tire and your kid's upset in the back seat and you feel overwhelmed, any of those reasons are the right time to call 988, get the support you need, and talk about the different resources that might be available. Again, we're part of a national network of more than 200 crisis centers across the country. And anytime someone from Utah dials 988, they'll be directed to our team. We're the only center in the state of Utah, and we're available 24/7 at no cost to offer those emotional support and potentially life-saving resources.
Rachel, thank you for joining us. 988 is the number for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. I have some more questions. I want to know if I'm worried about taking up space from someone who might need it more. Should I still make that phone call? Let me get you to address that coming up in just a little bit.
Let's face it, nothing makes you look older than you really are than thinning hair. But what if you could not only increase your hair count, but promote new hair growth without surgery, without drugs with potential side effects, and without a prescription from your doctor? Well, now you can, thanks to a breakthrough new supplement called Hair Grow, provided by New Nordic, the #1 supplier of dietary supplements in Europe. Hair Grow is now available in the U.S. Only Hair Grow contains tocogaya, a powerful antioxidant that has received a U.S. patent. Multiple clinical studies show Hair Grow is safe and effective in promoting new hair growth. In one study, 95% of the patients using Hair Grow saw increased hair count. Don't lose more time and more hair. Try Hair Grow today to feel and look your best. Available online at Amazon, Walmart.com, and NewNordicUSA.com, or in stores at your local CVS. Look younger and feel more confident with Hair Grow by New Nordic at NewNordicUSA.com, or in stores at your local CVS.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Utah families are spending $1,000 a year more on groceries than they did just a couple of years ago. Second, Ukrainian forces say they've captured 100 Russian fighter jets in their push across the Russian border. And third, kindergartners in the Alpine District are staying in school now for the whole day. 79 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic. Back to school. Special coverage with Dave and Dujanovic.
No, we heard from several parents yesterday by phone and also on our text line concerned about, ballooning class sizes in their kids' school. In particular, Dave, I know you were off yesterday, so you didn't get a chance to talk with Jeffrey Keller. He's a dad. His daughter attends Farmington Elementary, and in her 5th grade class, there are 37 kids. And in the other 5th grade class, so there are 2 5th grade classes at Farmington Elementary, the other 5th grade class has 37 kids as well.
My daughter is 10 years old, one of these children, one of 37, in quite a large class for these young minds. A little worried that, look, my daughter's sharp. I think she'll be okay, but I just worry about other kids and just the kids in general, the teachers. This is a lot to put on just one teacher.
That poor teacher. That poor 5th grade teacher with 37 kids. Give that teacher hazard pay because that is a huge classroom.
House Majority Leader Representative Jefferson Moss live on the line. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy back to school week this week and next week. We have heard from a few parents who listen to the show who are concerned about ballooning class sizes. You just heard from the dad, Jeffrey Keller, up there at Farmington Elementary, who's concerned about his daughter's 5th grade class size. So talk to us about what lawmakers are doing or can do to help mitigate these larger classes.
Yeah, happy to do that. And I'll just maybe share some personal perspective. My wife is actually a 3rd grade teacher. And as maybe you know, I live in Saratoga Springs, which is probably one of the fastest growing areas in the state. And so I feel very much firsthand with my own students. I have 3 that are currently in our public education system. as well as my wife. And so I do hear this as a regular concern. In fact, my interestingly, my background goes back to when my dad was actually state superintendent of schools, when there were some real concerns about this as well back in the 80s. And I think you remember there was a teacher walkout over that. And ultimately, I think there's some pros and cons with some of the things that are happening currently in Utah. Obviously, we benefit from the fact that we have a lot of young people. A lot of states are struggling with that. I think Utah's fortunate that we are having a lot of young people. But that also brings a lot of challenges, as you've mentioned. And so the legislature obviously is very concerned about that, and we talk about it every session. We also have heard for the last few years, especially during the pandemic, a lot of the concerns around teacher retention and getting new teachers in the classroom and teacher pay. And so we've made a number of efforts on that side to try to improve teacher salaries, and there's been a lot of effort on that. Ultimately, with the way that we do our funding, a lot of that is determined at the local level. We block grant that out based on a per student basis, and so classes, they'll do different things. Different districts will do different things. LEAs, and even different principals will do a different approach. Some will put more to aids or other things to try to offset some of that growth. But I'll just tell you, we very much are aware of and share the same concern with how many of our classes. On the other hand, we have areas in our state that we're seeing significant declines. And even in Alpine School District, there's areas where class sizes are shrinking and much smaller than on the west side, for instance. And you have areas like Salt Lake that have seen significant declines in student counts. And so there's just also that dynamic of how do you provide a way for each school, depending on what district they're in, to have the flexibility to determine what the best way to address those problems are. And usually that's why we try to put a lot of that funding directly into the per pupil amount, with direct spending to the districts, not through us.
So if you do have a concern about your class size, whether it's too big or not, what do you tell parents? Like, where's their best resource? Who should they talk to? Is this falling on principals? Is this the superintendent, the school district? Who do they go to?
I would say all of the above. I think, we do our funding mechanism is to push as much of that to the LEAs, to the districts, to determine those allocations, how they want to spend those dollars, if they want to put it more into teacher salaries, if they want to put more into class size reduction. Really, that's the area that has the most direct impact. And that's what we hear from the system, from our schools every year is don't try to come up with your own solutions. Please just provide us the flexibility to give us the ability to do it at the local level. And so I think having those conversations. That said, the legislature obviously needs to be very aware and looking at other mechanisms. Like I mentioned, we've done some very targeted things at the legislature. For instance, on teacher recruitment, we've done a number of things of trying to create mechanisms to help support getting teachers that may not traditionally come into the schools, a pathway to do that. We did some things last year around teacher recruitment and retention. So there are times where we'll do some piloted type programs, but on the larger scale, I think that's definitely more of a local issue to try to figure out where the best use of those funds should be.
Just one final question. We have about maybe less than a minute left. We're speaking with House Majority Leader Representative Jefferson Moss right now, but particularly about schools and how to deal with crowded classrooms. Has the legislature had a chance at all to measure any of these things that have been enacted to retain teachers to see if they're working?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The school board, in terms of getting new teachers in the classroom, some of the efforts we've done over the last couple of years, the Board of Education has brought us that data. It's significant. We've been able, both in terms of number of teachers coming into the classroom, we've seen increases there. In terms of non-traditional teachers coming into the classroom through these unique efforts, those have actually been very successful. So yeah, we've had great data to show that those targeted efforts are working.
House Majority Leader Representative Jefferson Moss, thank you for joining us.
I think this was your inaugural visit with D2. Am I correct?
I do think so, yes.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining us. It's great to talk to you. Appreciate you being willing to discuss this with you. And also, thanks to your wife, and his dad was superintendent of schools, so he's got a lot of familiarity with.
Pretty much the perfect person to talk about to this, because he's certainly on the funding side of things in the legislature, and probably hears it from his wife after school. These class sizes are booming. It's an important thing, I think, to realize that one size does not fit all. I think you do have to keep a great deal of flexibility at the local level from school to school, because class sizes can change from year to year, year to year to year. But there's no question, if I had a class size of 37, I just don't know how a teacher could possibly even remember my kid's name with that big of a class.
Well, and it's not just 37 for one day, right? It's
Yeah.
37 for all the days. of
180
school.
days.
We're going to keep in touch with the dad, Jeffrey Keller from Farmington Elementary, and other parents there to see how things are going throughout the school year. And he wasn't the only parent we heard from who have concerns over this. So we'll continue to track to see how things go for those kiddos in those more crowded classrooms. Straight ahead, if you're buying or selling a home, you need to know there's some new real estate rules that take effect this week. We're going to be live with the Utah Association of Realtors to find out how and if these rules will impact you. Next.
It's 10:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomis. Our top story this hour, Utah Senator Mike Lee says he plans to vote for Governor Spencer Cox in November. Another Republican should too. KSL News Radio's Verl Johansson has that story.
Lee's post on social media says he's voting for Cox. This comes after the Utah Supreme Court dismissed Phil Lyman's lawsuit, and Lyman announced he's running as a write-in. Lee says, quote, "We cannot risk Utah turning into California. We must defeat the Democrats by uniting behind our fellow Republicans," close quote.
Lee says the primary's over and it's time to unite. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. 5 people facing federal criminal charges in the death of actor Matthew Perry. They include 2 doctors and a woman known as the Ketamine Queen of Los Angeles. They're all charged with conspiracy to distribute ketamine. Perry died last fall from an overdose of ketamine. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up 520 points on the day so far, and the NASDAQ is up 383. And our KSL weather, just sunshine today. It's drying out. That's next. KSL News Time, 10:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates this weekend only. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandswimspasale.com.
I remember a few years back, I had a family member call me and said, "Hey, I've got somebody in crisis. What do I do?" I said, "Don't call me. I'm not the expert. We got to call somebody." But I couldn't Google. I couldn't remember what the suicide crisis hotline, lifeline was. It's why I'm so grateful that they've simplified it. It's 988. And Rachel Lucinski joins us right now as the director, as one of the directors over at the Huntsman Mental Health Institute. And Rachel, 988, so easy to remember and so crucial. Can you speak to the importance of having that simplicity and easy to remember number?
Absolutely. When folks are in crisis, either feeling overwhelmed and like they're not sure who to turn to, or potentially considering hurting themselves or ending their lives, That's really a difficult headspace to be in, and it can be hard to know who to reach out to, who to call. So 988 is the easy to remember, easy to access number. When folks in Utah call that number, it connects them to the Utah Crisis Line. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's free. There's absolutely no cost, and the service can even be confidential. So you can share as much information as you're comfortable sharing or not. And we've got teams that are available around the clock, ready to offer support. You also can call in, just like you mentioned, if someone in your life is overwhelmed and you're not sure what to do to help. So we take calls from spouses, from family members, from coworkers, people reaching out and saying, "I'm either worried about someone or I'm sitting here with them. Please help us." And our team's available no matter what situation you throw at us. We're here and we're ready to answer those calls.
What if somebody's worried about taking up space or taking up one of those phone lines from somebody who needs it more?
Yeah, the great news is we have the capacity. And if you're thinking about calling, you deserve the space to get that support. So last year, our team received almost 92,000 calls. So you're not alone in feeling overwhelmed. There's so many folks just like you that might be struggling, and we're able to get the help that they need. In the state of Utah, we have one of the best staffed crisis centers across the country. And that's in huge part to our Utah legislature and the Department of Health and Human Services that have made amazing investments in these services over the years. So we have a 93% in-state answer rate. Some of those calls, people get nervous and they hang up before we get the chance to answer. But if you don't get answered right away, we do have a national backup center. So that call will route to another regional center and get you the support you need if we can't answer in 2 minutes or less. The great news, though, is last year we're answering the phone within about 10 seconds on average. So
Wow.
again, we have capacity. We're ready to answer those calls. And if you're feeling like you need help, you deserve connection to these resources as well.
Yeah, it's easy to remember. It's 988. It's the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Heather Kelly.
Well, things are moving along very nicely right now all across the Wasatch Front. No accidents reported on I-15 throughout Utah, Salt Lake, Davis, and Weber counties. You've got good speeds coming out of Tooele County on I-80 and the 201 freeway, and on I-80 going to and from Park City. Common Spirit hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advanced healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with Human Kindness is here. Hello, Human Kindness. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny today and tomorrow with highs in the mid-90s, and there's a chance of thunderstorms again on Saturday and Sunday. Right now, 82 degrees, mostly sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
If you are buying a home, if you're selling a home, we're going to find out right now how new rules for realtors could impact you. Like maybe how much you pay at closing or who pays the agent.
I both bought and sold a home in the last month. So I'm scratching my head a little bit thinking, did I mess up? Should I have waited longer? Were there better deals out there for me? Stephen Bond joins us right now with Utah Association of Realtors. You're the owner of Capital Advisors Real Estate in Provo. Stephen, did I mess up by selling my home already and buying a new one? Are there better deals to be had out here?
Yeah, great question. Dave, I honestly don't know that it's going to affect the deals in the market with this settlement. It's more affecting the procedure of how the transaction happens more than it is market value or pricing of real estate.
So, Stephen, what I know historically from buying and selling homes is, as my experience as a buyer and seller, the seller traditionally has paid a 6% fee. Maybe for some it's 5%, but mine has always been about 6% as a seller when I put my home on the market. And the buyer doesn't pay their agent. I pay the buyer's agent. But that seems to me what is kind of at the center of what is changing when these new rules take effect in a couple of days. So what can you tell us about how that will shift, how that will look for the buyer and the seller?
Yeah, so a couple of things are happening with the process that's going to change that. As specifically, like you were mentioning, you were paying a 6% commission, and the buyer's agent was getting paid out of that transaction when you sold the home. That was a customary way that real estate's been done for a long period of time, and that actually can still take place moving forward with this settlement. However, what's changing is not necessarily the commission amount, but how it's disclosed. Prior, your agent would put it on the MLS, which is the multiple listing service where it goes to all of the websites. And agents that were bringing buyers would see right up front what commission was being offered so that they would know that they'd be compensated for doing the work to bring that buyer to your home. Now, that will no longer be listed on the MLS. So each and every transaction, the buyer agent will negotiate and say, seller, are you willing to pay a commission if I bring this buyer to your property? The seller may have already predetermined that with their listing agent or broker, or they may say, I want to negotiate this on every transaction. But the reality is that choice is left with the realtors and their clients as to how they want to move forward with that transaction going forward.
So if I'm buying a home and the seller has not set aside 2 or 3% to pay for things, that's something that I would have to negotiate with my realtor?
That is correct. So the realtor can be paid either by you directly, say, I'm going to pay you for services to represent me, or they can be paid through negotiations of it being part of the purchase price where it's paid at closing as what we call a concession. Much like sometimes buyers will ask for closing cost help. They come up with their down payment, but the closing costs to get the loan and other things can add up on top of that. They need a little help. They can ask the seller for help with that and commissions now.
So right now, I guess we just accept as a concession that you're going to pay the realtor, my realtor, that 2 or 3%, and then any concessions above and beyond, hey, will you help me replace a roof or, whatever it might be. Is it going to be more difficult for buyers to be able to say, hey, now we're tacking that? Are they going to lose the new roof, for example, or new carpeting or paint or whatever it might be, because the seller's going to say, no, I'm not paying for that and the realtor fees?
Yeah, it does bring up complexity, which is why a realtor is so valuable to understand all the nuance of these details of how a contract's going to work and how to negotiate the best value for the buyer for things such as that roof. There's a lot of details that go into that as far as what the house appraises for. I think we need to always remember as well that as a seller, the seller's motivation is to get top dollar. Regardless of who gets paid where and how, they're only looking at what they net. And they always have. That doesn't really change the equation there. And buyers are looking, what can I afford? And how does it compare with the next door person that just bought a home? Is it similar in value? Am I overpaying compared to that person? Am I underpaying? It takes a good professional to help that buyer know where the value's at and how they're being protected. And it takes a good professional to help the seller know the same exact equation, but they're different views and different benefits, and you got to protect both sides. And so the thing that we as a profession want to make sure of is that consumers, whether they're consuming the services to sell or to buy, have the help of a professional to be protected.
Stephen Bond is with the Utah Association of Realtors, and he's joining us in studio as new rules get set to take effect on August 17th, so just a couple of days away, regarding compensation for real estate agents. And I want to know, if I'm just somebody who's not really a buyer, I haven't signed an agreement with my agent or an agent, and I'm driving around a neighborhood and I see an open house on Sunday. Yep. And I just stop in. I've done that in the past before. I don't have an agent agreement. I just stop in because I'm curious and, wow, I fall in love with the house. Would I be allowed without a signed agreement with a buyer's agent to be able to see that house? How would that work, practically speaking, on that Sunday morning when I stop into that open house?
Open houses have a small carve-out where they're allowed because they're open to the public. And so there's not an agency relationship established for that open house. However, let's switch that narrative just slightly. You're curious on a Sunday afternoon and you pull up an app and you see a home that you just drove by and say, I want to go inside that home. Now you contact an agent. Prior, you could do that. Agent shows up, shows you the home, wants to earn your business, treats you with a handshake and a smile, and then says, where would you like to go next? Or do you want to write an offer on this home? That process changes slightly from the settlement. Before you see the home, that agent is required to now share with you an agency contract that says, if I represent you in the future, this is what this relationship looks like. This is how much I'll be paid. So you know right now, before we start looking, what that would look like today, not once you get so deep into this and you're emotionally invested and you write the offer, and now you're talking about compensation as a part of that whole package. We love the fact that it's more transparent. There's some things we don't like procedurally about this settlement that are going to make it much more difficult in some ways for consumers to transact without the help of a professional. But what we do like is that there's more transparency. That consumer really gets how everyone's being compensated from day one.
Is there one thing that you most dislike about it that you can touch on in about 30 seconds?
The biggest concern we see is that first-time buyers may have more difficulty recognizing the value of representation and fall into pitfalls that they have no idea that they're falling into.
Like not signing an agreement with an agent?
Yeah, and thinking they can save money, but now they're suspect or being susceptible to a professional on the other side with maybe an experienced seller who's owned a home, obviously, because they're selling one, and they've never been in home ownership. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know what loan programs they qualify for, what grants might be available to them. And so they make a lot of decisions thinking they're saving money, and unfortunately, most often, they're not. They're usually costing themselves a lot of money and potential pitfalls in the process.
So you're afraid it might scare first-time home buyers into signing an agreement for representation just because they're worried about having to pay that agent at the end of the transaction?
Oh, no, actually, I'm scared that they would be fearful of the representation.
Okay.
And then just go straight to the listing broker without any clue of what actually representation looks like on their behalf. And so it takes away that education side. We want our consumers, buyers or sellers, to have representation, eyes wide open into this complex process of real estate.
Stephen Bond, thank you for joining us with the Utah Association of Realtors.
Let's continue the conversation next with our partners at the Stern team. Russell Fawcett joining the show next.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Current events can have a lot of moving parts. Our job is to make it easy to keep up.
You're part of a bigger world, so spend 15 or 20 minutes here and be part of it.
Join us weekday mornings between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
In a world where ugly siding, leaky gutters, and inefficient windows are sapping homeowners of their will to live, one company must save us all. This year, join RGS Exteriors as it embarks on a mission to eliminate outdated home exteriors, one Utah home at a time. Every plank of old, ugly siding must be replaced. Every leaky gutter must be eradicated. Every inefficient, energy-sapping window must be vanquished. Once and for all. Begin your epic remodeling quest by calling RGS Exteriors for a free estimate. Discover how a heroic team of experts will save your siding, gutters, or windows for a fair, no-nonsense price. Call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or journey online to rgsexteriors.com. RGS Exteriors, coming soon to a home near you.
We know 911. We know when to call 911. But do you know 988 and when you should use the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline? Rachel Lucinski joins us right now from the Huntsman Mental Health Institute. And Rachel, for those listeners that are just joining us, when should you use the 988 hotline?
988 is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you are thinking about potentially hurting yourself, if you're feeling overwhelmed in life, if you feel like you just need someone to talk to, or you're not sure where to turn to get connected to mental health resources, or any level of support, that's when you should call. You don't have to be actively suicidal. You don't have to be in an extreme state of distress or crisis. Even just feeling overwhelmed with the stressors of life is a reason to call 988. And not only call, chat and text is also available. So you can text 988 or you can go on the website and start a chat as well. So we're available in many different forms.
What type of training do the people have who are answering the phone, Rachel?
All of our team members are certified crisis workers. So they're folks with bachelor's degrees in a social service field. They go through at least 30 days of new hire onboarding and orientation with our training team at Huntsman Mental Health Institute. And they also go through a 40-hour training program through the Department of Health and Human Services, where they actually become credentialed and certified crisis workers. So they're learning skills in de-escalation, in connection and rapport building with folks. They're understanding how to reduce those overwhelming feelings of crisis and distress, and also make assessments on what's the level of risk that someone's experiencing in their life. And in that moment, how can we make the appropriate connections and referrals to folks, whether that is a recommendation to have a mobile crisis outreach team come to their home, whether that's connecting them with an emergency department or referral to an inpatient setting, or coordinating with law enforcement or EMS if it's those really rare situations where someone is imminently at risk of hurting themselves or has potentially already taken that action. So our goal is to always keep people as safe and comfortable as possible, and work to reduce the stress and the risk of a situation in the least restrictive way possible.
Rachel Lucinski, thank you for joining us from the Huntsman Mental Health Institute. Again, the number's easy to remember, 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
Are you within 5 years of filing for Social Security? Get this, 96% of Americans forfeit an average of $111,000 in Social Security income. And it's all because they filed for their benefits at the wrong time. Learn how you could avoid this with a free, customized Social Security analysis from Boss Retirement Solutions, 5-time winners of the Best of State Award. If you've saved more than $200,000 for retirement and have not filed for Social Security, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-896-9622. You know, for some people, filing for Social Security early could result in more net income in retirement. Discover how you could get the most income from Social Security. Call 801-896-9622. 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Senator Mike Lee telling his supporters to back Governor Spencer Cox in the upcoming election. Second, 5 people are facing federal charges related to the drug overdose death of Matthew Perry. And third, a flight on its way to Jackson, Wyoming had to make an unscheduled stop in Salt Lake because the pilot wasn't certified to land at the Jackson airport. 82 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
We always appreciate our partnership with the Stern team. You can learn your home's true value in 30 seconds. All you got to do is visit sternteam.com to find out more. And we're going to continue in the conversation about the changes that are just right around the corner. They go into effect August 17th, which is this weekend, over compensation in the real estate market, like for buyers and sellers. How does this look now that these new National Association of Realtors rules are going into effect?
And some of my worry is for the first-time home buyer. I think back when I was in my 20s, my mid-20s, and I bought my first home, I was overwhelmed. I didn't know anything about home ownership. Didn't know how much it was going to cost. Russell Fawcett joins us right now, owner of the Sturm team. And Russell, if you don't mind, can we narrow it down a little bit to this first-time home buyer's experience and how these new rules apply to them specifically? What are some of the things that maybe concern you or you want people to be aware of if they're a first-time home buyer now?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing I would say is the way that compensation is being disclosed is the primary change. This doesn't change that a seller can still offer buyer agent compensation. And so, but for a first-time home buyer, with the news and everything that's come out, you know, there may be sellers that
are inclined not to cooperate in paying any type of compensation. So a first-time home buyer, really it leaves them with the decision of, am I able to pay an agent to help me through this process? Or, am I going to try to do this unrepresented? And so you're correct. Where it really hurts them is if they get into that multiple offer situation, and so the seller, has 3 or 4 offers they can work with, and someone's not asking for the seller to pay for the buyer agent compensation, then at that point, again, the buyer is going to have to pay it themselves, or try to work it into a loan. And that's one of the things we don't know is how are the lenders going to treat that if a buyer wants to try to wrap it in.
Russell Fawcett is the owner of the Stern team. You regularly join the show to help walk us through our real estate questions. So for first-time home buyers, what would you, if somebody came to you as a buyer looking to maybe sign an agreement, what kind of things would you advise them about, Russell?
Yeah, so honestly, we're going to be looking at properties and communicating with listing agents really to find those properties where the seller is offering the compensation, much like they do today. And so it's going to take more communication with the agents, between the listing agent and buyer agent, really to negotiate that deal that still works for the first-time home buyer. Maybe you're looking at a home that's been on the market for 30 days or 45 days where you're not going to end up in that multiple offer situation. But you have to understand, 95% of homes are sold by a buyer's agent, a cooperating broker. And so I guess one of the things that I look at is, yes, sellers are more aware now that is negotiable. It's always been negotiable. But by taking that away, they have to understand they may be eliminating a lot of the people that could potentially buy their home. And so as we talk to our sellers, we're still saying, hey, this has always been the case. And if you don't, plan on cooperating, you may lose some buyers that can't afford to pay for that representation. So they're going to go look at someone else's house.
One thing I've wondered about is if a buyer doesn't have that set, a buyer's agent, I'm saying, if they don't have that set 2 or 3%, is it possible that a realtor could charge even more, maybe 4% or 5%? Are there any? Are they saying we're so good, we're going to save you so much money that we're actually going to charge you 5 or 6% of the sales price? Are there any guardrails for that?
So there's not guardrails, but what one of the changes are, prior to an agent being able to show you a property now, you have to enter into a buyer agency agreement. So let's say we were going to work together and you gave me a call. We would have to negotiate up front what my compensation would be before we went out and looked at any property. So if I came and said, hey, I'm the best there is, I'm going to charge you 20%, more than likely you're going to tell me, okay, thank you for your time. I'm going to go find someone that's going to do it for less than 20%. So that is one of the changes, is that we know up front, because the reason they made that change was before the listing agent would negotiate on behalf of the buyer and buyer agent of what that compensation would be. And even though it comes from the seller's proceeds, the buyer's the one buying the house and essentially paying for it. And that was the reason for the change, because they're like, well, I didn't get a say in what, the agents were being paid. So now the buyer is able up front to say, I'm only going to pay this amount. Yes, we're going to work to try to have the seller cooperate in compensating, but now I know my offer is based off of a commission that I've agreed to pay. And so that was one of the big reasons for this change. So there will be no surprises, because in fact, the other change with the compensation, if we enter an agreement at 3%, and let's say the seller's even willing to pay 6% or 5%, I cannot collect any more than what we've negotiated. And so at that point, even if a seller said, hey, I'm gonna pay 10%, I can't take that as your buyer agent. I can only take what we agreed that I would take.
What we've negotiated. Okay.
Yep.
Russell, thank you. Russell Fawcett, owner of the Stern Team. Always appreciate this Stern Team's partnership. And I want to just make it clear for those people who haven't bought a home before, like 5%, 6%, that is the percentage of compensation or commission that goes to the agents we're talking about based on the sales price of the home. So if the home is selling for $500,000 and we're talking 5%, that's $25,000 between the agents that we're talking about. It makes sense? Did I do the math right there, Dave?
Right on.
You gave me a thumbs up. Let's see if Boyd gives me a thumbs up next. He's coming into studio. Inside Sources.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 11 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomis. Our top story this hour, a flight going to Jackson, Wyoming, had to be diverted to Salt Lake City earlier this week, and KSL News Radio's Michael Commute explains why.
The Alaska Airlines SkyWest flight was coming from San Francisco, but the pilot was not certified to make the risky approach to Jackson Hole, and they had to head south to Salt Lake City. Once they were there, a certified pilot boarded and got the plane back to Wyoming 4 hours after they were supposed to land.
Pilots need to contend with risky winds, terrain, and a short runway going into Jackson. Spanish Fork Fire and Emergency Medical Services making a big change. They're going from a volunteer crew to full-time employees. It had worked on a volunteer basis since the department was founded in 1908. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The Gaza Health Ministry, run by Hamas, says the total number of Palestinian deaths in the Gaza war has now reached 40,000. It doesn't distinguish between fighters and civilians. Negotiations on a ceasefire are underway in Qatar, but Hamas has chosen not to attend. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up 481 points on the day right now. The NASDAQ is up 355. And our KSL weather. We've got sunshine today. Storms don't come back till the weekend. That's next. KSL News time, 11:01.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the nines, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Introducing Peach Doors and Windows. Are you ready to upgrade your home with stunning new doors but are overwhelmed with how to begin? Peach Doors is here to make the entire process smooth and stress-free. Visit their showroom to see their wide selection of wood doors, durable fiberglass, energy-efficient aluminum, oversized glass bifold doors, and so much more. It's not just about looks, it's about durability and security to protect what matters most. Let them help you find the perfect match for your home, budget, and personal style. Visit their showroom and see for yourself. No pushy sales tactics, only guidance from their experienced staff. No inflated markups just to offer so-called discounts. See their 5-star reviews where customers rate them on their attention to detail through every step of the sale and installation process. Amazing home transformations begin with windows and doors. Serving Logan to St. George, just Google Peach Building to see for yourself.
This is the story of the one. As a warehouse manager, her job is to transform chaos into clarity and to see patterns where others see problems. Luckily, she's got a partner who shares her perspective. Grainger offers over 1 million industrial-grade products, backed by real-person support and in-depth online resources, so she can tackle every task with precision and turn potential setbacks into streamlined success. Call clickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
We all know what UV rays can do to our skin, but they can also do damage to your car. Keep that from happening with 303 Protectant. 303 Protectant keeps the sun's harmful rays from causing fading and cracking in rubber, plastic, or vinyl surfaces. From the dashboard to the tires, 303 Protectant keeps your car looking new longer. Get 303 Protectant today at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Visit 303radio.com for more information.
You wouldn't know it, but most financial advisors are put in a box. I'm Jeff Jr. from Trajan Wealth, and I want to provide you a little insight about financial advisors. Most financial advisors have to sell what their company requires them to sell, and many advisors have to only adhere to what's called a suitability standard. A suitability standard is a limited standard of care, not requiring what's sold to be best, just suitable. Advisors with this loose standard often have limited investment and product selection. Trajan Wealth is held to a fiduciary standard, which is the highest standard of care in the advisory business. And that's just one of the many reasons we have billions of dollars under our care and attract clients from other advisors. Raise your standards today and call Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
In Utah County, crews are wrapping up an earlier accident, and this is going to be northbound I-15. It's about a mile north of Santaquin. It has been affecting a left lane of traffic and causing a little bit of backup in the area. Business owners get schooled on the ABCs of asphalt and concrete before fall. GoPave Utah can educate you on getting the most life out of your parking lot. Visit GoPaveUtah.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny today and tomorrow, highs in the mid-90s, and there's a chance of thunderstorms again on Saturday and Sunday. Right now, 84 degrees and mostly sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Before we get to Boyd Matheson and Inside Sources, we are going to go to breaking news right now. CNN carrying a live news conference with the United States attorney where he's talking about Matthew Perry and his death. Of course, Friends star died in October of 2023. We're learning this morning that his assistant and doctors have been charged with getting him ketamine. Let's listen into the live news conference right now.
Mr. Perry. He had spoken to another patient in mid-October 2023, and he told that patient that Mr. Perry was spiraling out of control with his addiction. Nonetheless, defendant Placentia continued to offer ketamine to Mr. Perry. Likewise, defendant Sonia knew what she was doing was harming defendants and also Mr. Perry. She took advantage of Mr. Perry by selling large amounts of ketamine to Mr. Perry over a 2-week period in October of 2023. She sold approximately 50 vials of ketamine for approximately $11,000 in cash. She worked with a broker, defendant Eric Fleming, and also the live-in assistant, defendant Iwamasa, to distribute this ketamine. Sonia and the broker, defendant Fleming, saw this as an opportunity to profit off of Mr. Perry. In a text message, the broker wrote, quote, "I wouldn't do it if there wasn't a chance of me making some money for doing this." Defendant Sonia sold the batch of ketamine that resulted in Mr. Perry's death on October 28th. Officers later searched defendant Sonia's home. During that search, they found what amounted to a drug-selling emporium. They found 80 vials of ketamine, thousands of pills containing methamphetamine, cocaine, bottles of Xanax and other illegally obtained prescription drugs, and drug-selling paraphernalia, including scales and ledgers. As I mentioned, the defendants in this case knew what they were doing was wrong. When they'd refer to the ketamine, they used coded language. They'd refer to it using terms such as, quote, Dr. Pepper, or quote, bots, or quote, cans. Also, defendants Placentia and Chavez, as medical doctors, knew full well this was not the proper way to administer ketamine, and they even talked about that in their exchanges. And defendant Sonia also knew that she was doing something that caused great risk to Mr. Perry. In fact, during this investigation, we learned that several years before, in 2019, defendant Sonia had sold ketamine to another customer. That person died the same day. And a family member of that person sent a message to defendant Sonia telling her the cause of death was ketamine. Nonetheless, defendant Sonia continued selling drugs, including ketamine, including the ketamine that ultimately killed Mr. Perry. That other victim was a person named Cody McGlory. He died in 2019. As a result of this investigation, we have filed a drug distribution charge related to the death of Mr. McGlory. After Mr. Perry died, these defendants tried to cover up what they had done. On October 28th, after reading news reports of Mr. Perry's death, defendant Sonia wrote a text message to defendant Fleming saying, quote, "Delete all our messages." Likewise, after Mr. Perry's death, defendant Placentia falsified medical records and notes to try to make it look like what he was doing was legitimate. It was not. We have filed numerous federal charges against the 5 defendants. These charges include conspiracy to distribute ketamine, distribution of ketamine resulting in death, maintaining drug-involved premises for that drug-selling emporium the defendant Sonia had, altering and falsifying records related to a federal investigation for those false medical notes and records that defendant Placentia made, and multiple other drug trafficking counts. Of course, the defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty. The penalties these defendants face are very significant. With regard to defendant Placentia, the statutory maximum sentence he faces is 120 years in federal prison. And with regard to defendant Sonia, the statutory maximum she faces is life imprisonment. By filing these extensive and serious charges, we are sending a clear message. If you are in the business of selling dangerous drugs, we will hold you accountable for the deaths that you cause. This is nothing new for us. Since 2022, my office has filed over 60 cases against drug dealers who've caused the death of another person. These cases are known as death resulting cases. They are labor-intensive cases, and we work with our law enforcement partners, including ones represented here today, to bring those cases. Our office is a national leader in bringing those cases. They're very important because every victim's life counts. If you are in the drug selling business and you're selling dangerous drugs, you are playing roulette with other people's lives, just like the 5 defendants here did to Mr. Perry. Defendants nowadays are on full notice that the products they sell could result in the death of another person. Therefore, if you're in the drug business, and despite these risks you continue in the drug business, you are pushed by greed to gamble with other people's lives, be advised, we will hold you accountable. I want to thank our partners in this case, the Los Angeles Police Department.
That's a news conference out of Los Angeles happening right now. That is United States Attorney Martin Estrada speaking to the media about the death of Matthew Perry. Friends actor died in October of 2023. Several people have been indicted. As of today, we have now learned that Mr. Perry's personal assistant, 2 doctors, and others, according to the New York Times, indicted on crimes including conspiracy to distribute ketamine.
This is a huge development in the story of how the Friends star, Chandler Bing, dies, because we knew it was ketamine from the coroner's report. We knew it was ketamine in his system. In his memoir, Matthew Perry had talked about using ketamine infusions with a doctor to help treat depression, anxiety. So he had been using ketamine. This is much different. This was not part of the infusions. This isn't part of the therapy. This was abusing ketamine. And the network that they called of doctors and personal assistants that were supplying this to Matthew Perry, because there was this belief that he was sober at the time of his death, that he was just receiving these ketamine infusions as part of therapy. But according to Martin Estrada, the U.S. attorney, he said that Matthew Perry had fallen back into or out of sobriety and back into addiction during this time.
And one of the defendants in this case, he pointed out, faces life in prison. Of course, that's if there's a conviction in this case. But this is a major turn today, Dave, as you stated. When he died, I was like, like a lot of people who loved Friends, who loved Chandler Bing, who loved Matthew Perry, who felt like he was hopefully beating his addiction. It felt. It was just really, really heavy for a lot of us who grew up loving Friends in the 90s. And now, as of this morning, there's been an indictment that's been unsealed, multiple people charged in his death, and it's related to ketamine.
And as Martin Estrada, the U.S. attorney, was talking about the text messages between these doctors and the assistants, they talk about the $55,000 in cash to buy vials of ketamine, and one of the text messages, which was chilling, said, "I wonder how much this moron will pay."
Dave and Dujanovic.
Here's a trick to podcasting at work and getting all the Utah news you love.
Download the KSL News Radio app.
The podcast for Utah's morning news and Dave and Debbie are right there. Dozens of podcasts a day.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
It's that time. Back to basics and back to back-to-back classes. For some, school starts this week. Depend on this station to keep you moving with traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s. We have you covered for back to school, mornings and afternoons on KSL News Radio.
When I joined Salt Lake City Fat Loss months ago, it was with the hopes, and quite honestly, it was hopes that I would see big results. Many clients will lose 20 to 30 pounds in just a month or two. In my first 3 weeks, I lost 25 pounds. Over 2 months, I lost 57. And with Salt Lake City Fat Loss, they told me that they could do it safely and naturally, without surgery, without injections, without any insane exercising program. That made me worry too. I thought, am I just going to be running marathons every single day to lose this weight? No, there's actually no exercising on this reduction plan of the phase or phase of the plan. Also, no prepackaged meals. I was a little bit afraid of that because I'd done a program in the past that had prepackaged meals. I got sick of those meals after about 2 weeks, and I was ready for something different. But Salt Lake City Fat Loss, I was so happy with the program. It was easier. I won't say it's easy, but it was easier than I thought it would be. Go ahead and schedule a free consultation. Use my name. You're going to get an extra $200 off the program. Just go to slcfatloss.com. That's slcfatloss.com.
At Common Spirit Health, we know that lifelong health and well-being starts with primary care. So we have doctors and providers who see you, hear you, know you, and understand you. Because understanding you means understanding your needs. And that leads to a deeper knowledge of the prevention, wellness, and treatment options that may be best for you. It's primary care that treats your whole family like family. It's primary care with human kindness. Discover all the ways you can find and connect with a primary care provider at mountain.commonspirit.org.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you know that these days, generating growth is a challenge. By teaming with Bank of America, you'll not just stay ahead of the curve, you'll move it. With access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2024 Bank of America N.A.
Ooh, ma. What was that?
That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud Phone System. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very...
Calm? I am. Ooma has everything I need to run my business more efficiently, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business calm at ooma.com/radio.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates this weekend only. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandswimspasale.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a SkyWest flight on its way to Jackson, Wyoming had to make an unscheduled stop in Salt Lake to pick up a qualified pilot. Second, firefighters in Spanish Fork are turning professional now instead of volunteers. And third, the death toll among Palestinians in the war in Gaza has now reached 40,000. The Hamas-run health ministry doesn't distinguish between fighters and civilians. 84 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic. Back to school. Special coverage with Dave and Dujanovic.
Well, since it's back to school season, Dave and I talking a lot about school-related issues. And we started this week talking about micro schools. Neither one of us seem to know a lot about them. They're smaller schools, hence the name micro schools. So we brought in our former colleague, good friend, Kelly Pierce, who has done a lot of research for the R Street Institute. She's also an independent journalist, to talk to us about what she knew about micro schools because she has been researching these.
A lot of these micro schools here in Utah, and this is true across the country as well, are either started by or are employing former public school teachers who were really felt disconnected from the public school system and wanted something that would more engage their talents and their students.
Disconnected from the current system. I would like to delve into that a little bit more of some of the reasons you'd be disenchanted with public schools. So we reached out to, or Marnie Wilson reached out to us and gave us a little bit of insight that you were one of the pioneers of micro schools. Marnie, thanks for joining us. So what happened? How did this all start for you?
Thank you for letting me chat with you. It started because my children, and I have 7, were at junior high age, and I realized that I was going to be having junior high age kids for a long time. And the junior high in our neighborhood, which was a long ways away also, really had a bad reputation. So junior high age is such a pivotal time, and everybody can remember how horrible 7th grade was. And at junior high age, they're developing their concept of who they are. But at the same time, the teachers they're seeing 200 kids a day running through their classrooms. And the whole picture just seemed so bleak to me that I decided, I don't know how I could, in retrospect, how I could be brave enough, but I decided to start a junior high school. Early on, I realized that 9th grade counts for high school credit if you want to graduate from high school. So I only did 7th and 8th grade, and I did them in a combined class of somewhere between 12 and 25 kids. They didn't have the concept of micro schools then. And in fact, homeschooling was still very iffy all through the country and in Utah as well, just coming out of compulsory education. They could arrest you if your kids were homeschooling. So I didn't call it a micro school. I called it a group homeschool. But I hired teachers, and we had set curriculum that matched the public school curriculum. I wanted the kids to be well prepared for high school and excel. It was academically rigorous, and we did tests, but we did so many fun activities to learn instead of the read the text, answer the questions that is real common, particularly now with online education. It's boring, and the kids don't thrive.
Marnie Wilson, I want to call you one of the founders of microschooling in Utah, even though you said you didn't call it microschooling. And when you called and left a message here at the station, and I heard the message, I was like, I really want to talk to her. So you start this in the late 80s, and you said you'd had between 12 and 25 kids in your home?
Well, I started out in parents trading me. Well, that's another reason it wasn't really homeschooling, because I charged tuition. But I was dealing with middle-class, bright kids whose parents weren't rich. And so we did a lot of trading. So I started out with trading a bedroom for 12, that I put 12 kids, 12 desks. I started the school, it cost me $200 to get 12 desks and out-of-date textbooks from the school district and a rolling chalkboard. And that's how we started, in a bedroom. And then we eventually, my husband and I, moved to a house specifically because it had an acre and a half and this gigantic garage that I turned into a schoolroom.
What advice would you have for people who are considering, and we don't need you to write a whole textbook for us here on that, but one great piece of advice you could give for parents who are thinking about starting a micro school in their own neighborhood?
They better have a lot of courage, because it's harder than it seems. It's harder than homeschooling, because if they really want a micro school, then you've got to have the structure. You've got to have. I was a tax advisor. I was a counselor. I was a teacher. I taught history and math in the school, but I was there. It just takes a great deal of nurturing to make a micro school work. And it is so worth it. My middle school, micro school kids had reunions 10 years later because the experience was so wonderful. So it's hard. That's what I'd probably tell them.
Did most of these kids reintegrate into public schools after your junior high years?
Yes, and in fact, they excelled. And part of the reason was because we were so small and because we were academically rigorous. We taught them instead of doing creative writing, we did essay writing and note-taking. That stuff we learned in my civics class, the kids said, they cruised through BYU civics requirements because of what we had learned. So we were rigorous. And so getting into public school, the advantage was I had a rule that said no boyfriends and girlfriends. And as a result of that one rule, they learned to be friends with the opposite sex without any of the ties and trauma of boyfriends and girlfriends. Then also, they learned to talk to teachers because we were this small community. So they excelled in public school and beyond.
Marnie, thank you for joining us, Marnie Wilson. What we are calling a pioneer of the micro schools back in the late 80s. They've been around for a long time. Some people call them pods or pod schooling, micropods, lots of different names, but it is kind of this independent schooling system where somebody can gather.
And in today's world, there can be micro schools that are around 16 or less, and then there's which can be in homes, and then the 100 or less could, have to be in like a commercial building. But Marnie, I don't know where you get your energy. You still, but that does sound like a lot more work than I think I could be willing to take on if you're dealing with all of those things. You think about it, if you're running a micro school, you do have to have, I think maybe you're the principal, you're the teacher. You have to do the taxes. You have to make sure all the paperwork is taken care of. You're doing all the grading. It's a lot to think about.
And one thing to remember, if you're asking yourself, well, maybe I'm interested in this. How do I get in? How do I find a micro school in my community? There isn't a one-stop shopping. There isn't a hub that I know of. But oftentimes, if you reach out and you find some hard school homeschoolers, these are the circles where a lot of the pods or the micro schools will live. They will, maybe if they don't attend them, they still know about them. So those communities, those blogs, those will help you find one if you're interested.
Did you ever think about an alternative type of education model for your kids?
Definitely. It's a lot of work. Homeschooling,
yeah.
absolutely. I tried it for a hot minute with one of my sons during COVID.
I remember this.
And it was amazing for the first week. And then it was a disaster because it's incredibly time consuming. We had a lot of fun that first week. And then it was,
it's so funny.
I will say, not his best educational experience. But come on, it was during COVID, so nobody was getting anything.
Straight ahead, block a mailbox with your car, get a ticket? Stay with us to learn more about Timpview High School's parking issues. That's next.
It's 11:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomis. KSL's top local story this hour. More than 150,000 students in Utah's two largest school districts are back in the classroom today. Alpine School District Communications Director Rich Stoll says this is the first year they're offering full-day kindergarten district-wide. A lot of parents are happy about that.
Some families opted for a half-day kindergarten, but those families will also have the option of switching to a full-day model at any time.
Stoll says the fact that several cities are currently considering leaving the district doesn't change what they're focusing on going into the new year. Kids in the Davis School District, the second largest, also head back to class today. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The U.S. Secret Service arranging to resume Donald Trump's outdoor campaign rallies by surrounding him with bulletproof glass. That move follows the assassination attempt on the former president last month. The glass would shield the former president at least on three sides. Your money at this moment. The Dow Jones average up now 501 points on the day. The NASDAQ is up 365. The S&P up 79 right now. And our KSL weather. No more thunderstorms, at least for a couple of days. That's next. KSL News Time, 11:31.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
That precious cool air inside your house shouldn't be seeping out through old drafty windows, but if it does, get stylish new windows and frames at factory direct pricing from Advanced Window Products. This is Jeff Kaplan. Advanced Window Products has been building windows here in Salt Lake City for 38 years, but even if you don't need windows, they can give your interior a fresh new look with blinds, shades, and shutters from Graber. They offer custom crafted window treatments featuring the trendiest designs, premium materials, and quality without compromise. Advanced Windows offers start-to-finish service with shorter lead times so you get your custom blinds, shades, and shutters sooner. Call them for a free in-home consultation with their designers. It's a no-pressure experience, and if you need new windows, $2,500 off on 10 windows or more, or if you need window treatments, it's Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or go to advancedwindowsusa.com.
This song doesn't have a name, but if it did, it'd probably be something about togetherness, because it's a collaboration, not between pop stars and producers, but between music therapists and kids. Music therapy is a treatment that doesn't involve medication or needles, and it's been proven to help children manage pain and contribute to faster healing. So it shouldn't surprise you It's our favorite song. And just one way we partner with you for a life well lived. Intermountain Health, the power of we.
Life hack number 7. Get an iPhone 12 on Straight Talk.
Life hack.
Here's how it works. You walk into Walmart, go to the electronics section, ask for iPhone 12 with 5G and a dual camera system, and select the new Silver Unlimited plan. They'll smile because it's a good plan. You get real unlimited data all for just $20 a month for the whole first year. Get it at Walmart or StraightTalk.com. Straight Talk. Less dollars, more sense. Taxes and fees apply. Requires activation of iPhone 12 and a new Silver Unlimited plan or higher end auto pay enrollment. $25 a month service credit applied for up to 12 months if eligibility requirements are met. For network management practices, visit StraightTalk.com.
Don't let spring allergies make you miserable. Try the quick, drug-free solution trusted by over 4 million people. Navage. Only Navage uses suction to flush out your sinuses using refreshing saline, helping you breathe easier, sleep better, and feel healthier. And here's even better news. Navage is now available at your local Sam's Club in a great new value pack. It's everything you need to start breathing better fast. Check out Navage at your local Sam's Club today. Navage. Navage. Breathe easy.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We still have the cleanup of this crash on northbound I-15 in Utah County. It is just north of Santaquin, and it is blocking a left lane of traffic and causing some backups. So add an extra 10 minutes to your travel time. Your Salt Lake County freeways, though, delay-free with no problems. Take up to $10,000 off Chevy Silverado or lease a new Equinox EV for only $369 a month. When you walk through the doors, you feel like family at Murdoch Chevrolet in Logan or Woods Cross or online at murdochchev.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny today and tomorrow with highs in the mid-90s, and there's a chance of thunderstorms again on Saturday and Sunday. And right now, we're at 84 degrees. It's partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories. On KSL News Radio, Back to School, special coverage with Dave and Dujanovic.
All right, if you've ever lived by a high school or sent your kid to high school with their car, you know that parking can be an issue. Well, we're going to take you to Timpview High to talk about the problems with parking there. Things were getting so bad around the neighborhood. Kids were parking in front of mailboxes, apparently, but there was a problem. The mailman, I guess we don't call them mailmen anymore, the mail delivery person, because there's mail women too, right? I mean, mail delivery person couldn't get to the mailbox. But then police couldn't do anything about it because apparently there wasn't an ordinance in place that allowed them to ticket the cars. So we're at a stalemate. And in the center of this, you've got construction going on at Timpview High, and so things are messy in the parking lot.
It's one of the worst parts about living close to a school is the overflow, the bleed over parking, because kids, we're packing them in, and there is never enough parking for the students. And in fact, oftentimes you'll have high schools, for example, because that's the only ones really affected. But you'll have high schools that say, if you're a sophomore, we're not even going to give you a pass. The only people that get passes are juniors and seniors. So we never build enough parking. So what's the alternative? Kids have to start finding parking on the streets. And are they going to inconvenience the neighbors? 100%.
Here's an unpopular opinion. Don't buy your kid a car.
Jeez, Dad.
Then you won't have a parking problem.
How many cars did your kids have?
Guilty. Guilty.
Mine too.
Catrice McKay. Did I say your name right, Catrice? Hello? You there?
Yep, you
Hi.
did.
With the Provo City Council. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for joining the show. So walk us through how many complaints were coming in from the neighborhood with kids at Timpview High there in Provo parking on the streets and in front of mailboxes.
So last year, parking enforcement and Tree Women reported that we're receiving about 20 to 25 calls a day.
That's a lot. And so
It is a
people,
lot.
people were not getting their mail delivered. Was that the issue, or was the mail
Yes.
delivery person having to? Okay, go ahead and tell us what was going on there.
So before doing this ordinance, we spoke extensively with USPS, and they told us quite emphatically that they would not deliver if the mailbox was blocked. So, and that's what our citizens were experiencing. They were not getting their mail when their mailbox was blocked. And normally this happens the odd time, right? This isn't a common thing that happens with normal neighborhoods and parking. But with the construction that's gone on at Timpview for the last 4 years, last year particularly, there was just barely any parking on campus at all. And so all the parking was on the street, and people would get their mailboxes blocked for, say, 5 days a week and not get so a whole week they could go not getting their mail until Saturday.
So what had to be done? Because I guess I would have just assumed that it was illegal to park in front of somebody's mailbox, kind of like a fire hydrant. Is there nothing in place for that?
There is not a federal law for that, and many states and cities do have that law, but Provo did not. So we have done a temporary law or ordinance. It is the ordinance right now, but it's in a particular area. We actually did a particular map and just around the Timpview area that's being affected by this situation. And it will have a sunset clause on it as far as when the construction is over, we will lift it.
Okay, but I'm looking at the notes here, and it looks like the construction could go on through 2029 there at Timpview. I was like, that has got to be the longest construction period. I don't know. I haven't been able to compare other high school reconstruction and construction plans, but that's 5 more years, and it's already been going on for a couple of years, right?
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of frustration over that. There's financial issues. There's issues that they decided to rebuild in the existing spots, to do a rebuild while the students are attending the school. So, there were a number of things going on.
So what's the punishment if you do get caught parking in front of a mailbox?
You get a ticket the same as you would get if you were too close to an intersection or blocking a fire hydrant or blocking a driveway. So I don't want to put off a price because I don't want to get it wrong.
Okay.
But in my mind, it's around the 40s, 50s.
Okay. So, to the point where if they get a couple of tickets, it could probably really start to hurt.
Add up.
Yeah.
Well, we're giving out warnings in the beginning. So initially they'll get a warning. If it's their first time doing it, it's the first few weeks of the new ordinance, we're giving them a warning. And then from then on, they'll get ticketed. But we've done a lot of education. The city has, the council has, the administration's been great at the school and the principal. And so there's been a lot of, the word seems to be out. Like I was driving the streets yesterday, and it was very obvious that kids have purposely not parked in front of mailboxes.
So how you said you kind of drew a little bit of a barrier around Timpview for places this would be affected. How wide did you have to go? Did you go like a half a mile radius, or how far out from Timpview did you have to go?
We know from, this has been going on for the past 4 years, so we have an idea of where the kids are parking. So we just used the normal delineations on where the parking has been happening. And, it goes from Timpview Drive to Canyon Road and then a bit up Quail Drive and a couple of side streets. But most of the issue is down Timpview Drive and then the side streets off of Timpview Drive.
We're speaking live right now with Catrice McKay, Provo City Council, about this new ordinance. It's taking effect. The kids will get warnings in the beginning if they park their cars in front of mailboxes. This has been an ongoing issue there, and you were saying that you're getting about 25 complaints from neighbors a day who couldn't get their mail delivered. I'm wondering, when in those conversations, just real quickly with the U.S. Postal Service, was there any talk at all about, and this is not my idea, this is actually the co-host who filled in for Dave yesterday, Mara Carabello, brought this up with me, and because we were going to talk to you yesterday, and then we just had to postpone you till today. What about like a community mailbox on these streets instead of mailboxes in front of homes? Is that a possibility, or is that just too inconvenient for the neighbors to kind of compensate for what's going on there with the high school and the high school parking lot?
So new developments in Provo do have those great neighborhood mailboxes where, it's all being delivered to one. But the USPS decides all these things, and they don't, it was just a blanket, don't park in front of it, we won't deliver it. They weren't really interested in discussing any particulars.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. Catrice McKay with Provo City Council.
So right now you get a warning, and then if it continues, you get tickets. Sounds like the tickets are going to be about $40-$50. We'll have to verify that. She wasn't quite sure. But construction is going to go on until 2029 there. It's unfortunate. That's a long time to be under construction at a high school. So basically, anybody who is a freshman there now, your school will still be under construction by the time you graduate.
It's one of the little pieces of information I think a lot of homeowners don't realize is the curb right outside your house. That's not yours. You're not. Mm-hmm. You don't get that. You don't get that parking. It's not safe for you. That is just public parking. Now, most places do have some sort of ordinance in place that prevents people from parking in front of your mailbox. This just seems like an oversight, at least in my opinion, for the Provo City Council that they said, no, we didn't have anything in place that punish people for parking in front of the mailbox.
Do you dare not allow your child to drive to high school, Dave? I've thought about this. Since I've read up on this and we just talked to the Provo City Council about it, I thought a lot about it. It was kind of an automatic. It was just expected.
Yeah.
Your kiddo gets a car, and then maybe they share the car, but then the third child, and then everybody has a car. And I was like, well, the way to prevent this from happening is we don't give our kids cars when they're in high school.
Don't look at me. I had 3 drivers and 3 cars. They were beaters and they were terrible and they were garbage.
But they still had to park somewhere.
But they all had a car.
So you're guilty.
I'm totally guilty.
Okay, let's take live calls. Do you dare not give your child a car to drive to high school? 801-575-TALK, 801-575-TALK. Hey, if they're not driving a car, then they can't park that car in front of a mailbox, and then they can't get a ticket.
But then you're taxi mom. And taxi mom's the worst kind of mom. That's the worst job mom has, is taxi mom.
Dave and Dujanovic. A lot of us are filling our workdays with podcasts.
When you're working, go to KSLNewsRadio.com.
Click on Dave and Debbie's podcast and pick a topic and story length.
Podcast with Dave and Debbie. Then get to work with KSL News Radio.
Debbie and I have talked about this oftentimes. We don't trust ourselves with the electrical stuff. We don't DIY the electrical. That's why we call the professionals, and we've been calling Master Electrical Service for years now. Maybe not years, but we have trusted Master Electrical. In fact, you have too, since 1954. Well, we have some exciting news. If you want a little one-stop shopping, if you want to expand your help outside of the electrical world, they have joined Mountain Home Services.
And that means not only can Master Electrical, the experts there, do everything that you need to do in terms of electrical. So that's your recessed lighting, that's those ceiling fans that Dave loves, those are the generators. But now that they've merged with Mountain Home Services, they can also help you with your HVAC, heating and air, plumbing.
Yeah, all comes with the pricing, the upfront pricing guarantee that they're known for, no hidden fees, and there's 100% satisfaction guarantee.
That's a company we trust, and so can you. Mountain Home Services. You can find them at mountainhomeutah.com.
Or give them a call at 801-543-2222. That's 801-543-2222.
We all know what UV rays can do to our skin, but they can also do damage to your car. Keep that from happening with 303 Protectant. 303 Protectant keeps the sun's harmful rays from causing fading and cracking in rubber, plastic, or vinyl surfaces. From the dashboard to the tires, 303 Protectant keeps your car looking new longer. Get 303 Protectant today at AutoZone. Visit 303radio.com for more information.
Progressive knows finding your new home was a dream come true. You wanted a Colonial with high ceilings, hardwood floors, in a peaceful neighborhood. And you found it. Now, every Saturday at 6 a.m., you get to wake to the sound of your neighbor's leaf blower. Progressive can't save you from your noisy neighbors, but we can save you money when you bundle your home and auto with us. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
This is Derek Miller speaking on business. Forza Commercial is a premier commercial real estate firm specializing in development, property management, and equity raising here in Utah and across the United States. Principal Chris Hatch joins us with more.
Forza Commercial is a privately held commercial real estate company based in Salt Lake City, Utah. Our company is focused on delivering a full set of commercial real estate services to local and national real estate clients. We are consisted of 3 separate teams: Forza Capital, Forza Management, and Forza Development. Forza Capital raises equity with a pool of investors for our development projects and some third-party developer projects. Forza Development focuses primarily on building new retail projects. One of our passions is to recycle old, defunct buildings and make them new again. We currently have projects going with Cafe Rio, Dutch Bros, In-N-Out Burger, Starbucks, and Wells Fargo. Forza Management provides professional third-party property management for clients throughout the Western U.S. I feel privileged to work around the 40 talented individuals at our office. I'm blown away daily with their professionalism and expert knowledge.
Forza Commercial is dedicated to providing top-notch commercial real estate services to all clients, big or small. To learn more about the services they provide, visit their website, forzacommercial.com. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, speaking on business.
Any Hour Services can make sure your AC keeps you cool this summer. Whether you need a tune-up, repair, or just a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Utah's 2 biggest school districts are welcoming students back today. Voters are about to decide whether to split one of them into 3. Second, the Secret Service planning to surround former President Trump with bulletproof glass when he holds outdoor campaign rallies. And third, 5 people are facing federal charges now in the death of TV actor Matthew Perry. 84 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic. Back to school. Special coverage with Dave and Dujanovic.
We just jumped off the phone with the Provo City Council moments ago talking about how they're dealing with kids from the high school at Timpview there in Provo parking and blocking mailboxes. Well, the school's been under construction, so kids have had to park on the streets or have chosen to park on the streets, and they're blocking mailboxes.
Before doing this ordinance, we spoke extensively with USPS, and they told us quite emphatically that they would not deliver if the mailbox was blocked. So, and that's what our citizens were experiencing. They were not getting their mail when their mailbox was blocked. And normally this happens the odd time. Right?
So now you'll get a warning, and eventually if you keep parking in front of mailboxes, you get a ticket.
If I'm being totally honest, this is not a kid problem. You shouldn't be looking at the students, because for whatever reason you want to make, the problem is we don't have enough parking for kids, full stop. So we ask them to come to school, and then we don't give them any place to go. So they just end up places. And because they're always running late, they might crowd a mailbox, or they might bleed over near a fire hydrant. We should just have better plans for kids. And if there is reconstruction going on and they have to, cut down some of that precious real estate of parking, then you've got to give them an alternative. We don't communicate it. We don't do anything other than good luck.
Let's get to our phone lines, because I did ask a question just before the break after talking to the Provo City Council, and that was Teresa McKay, by the way. Could you possibly not give your child a car to drive to school? But we're both guilty, right? We've both done it, man.
Yeah.
A car per child. That was the car per child rule. And I was just like, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And could we have done it without each child having their own car when they turn, 16, 17 years old?
Part of the reason I couldn't do it is because every kid did something different, like an extracurricular activity, or they had a job. So even if I was a full-time taxi dad, I couldn't have gotten everybody in the right place at the right time. It was just impossible. I mean, it's a good problem to have, but yeah, that was part of the reason, or the main reason, why we had cars for all our drivers.
Reed, you there?
I'm here.
Hi. Oh, you live in Clinton. Do you guys have parking problems at the high school up there?
Yeah, at Clearfield High School, they're building a new CTE building, and so the kids are having to park at churches that are like 4 blocks away from the school, and it's been very inconvenient. They're even for the kids that have like that for playing football and those kind of things, because they've had to park in other places. And like Dave said, you both have had kids in extracurricular activities, and it's almost impossible to put them on a bus and send them to school when they have to do that. But if they could figure out a way to carpool and limit those things, maybe they could work something out. But and at Syracuse High School, they just added about 200 parking stalls to the front of their school because they had a nice landscaped area, but they found a need because out on 2000 West in Syracuse, the kids were all parking down the street. And so
yeah, it just becomes overwhelming. Thanks, Reed. I appreciate that. Jeff and Provo, what do you think?
So actually, I live not far from Tenant View High School, and I have 2 kids, and they park on the driveway. And my daughter, her friend, half the time parks on our driveway, just because we are close, and there's no closer part. But they both have cars, and the reason being is they both have jobs, and they both have basketball and football and baseball, and my daughter has dance and drill team and all this other things and jobs, and I can't. But you know, and my wife works and I work, and we work opposite shifts. So there's no way, and we have younger kids too. So there's no way for us to be mom and dad taxi. We have to have driving themselves to their own place. Dave hit it right on the nail right on the head when he said, you know, with the extracurriculars, they're doing their own thing, and they've got to be able to get there.
Yeah. Oh, I'm remembering back. You're taking me back on a walk down memory lane. Thank you so much, Jeff. Yeah, I remember when 2 in softball, 1 played baseball, jobs, you know, all of the things. And I worked as a news reporter. My husband was a police officer. Sometimes we worked opposite shifts, but after several years of doing opposite shifts, we tried to get on the same shift so we could actually see each other.
Novel idea.
Never knowing where we were going to end up in our work days. Never consistent schedule. This is the most consistent schedule I've had, and now my kids are in their 20s, is the schedule you and I have, Dave. And it is a lot of stress, and I don't remember all the reasons why it was a car per child rule in our home, but that was probably a big part of it.
It is. There's a convenience factor to it. There's a practicality to it. What I would like to see, and I was encouraged to hear that Syracuse High School had done this, where they expanded. They expanded their parking because it was bleeding out onto the streets, into the neighborhood. And I don't think that's fair to ask of the neighborhood to absorb that. I don't think it's fair to say, hey, sorry, we poorly managed how many parking spots we need, so we're going to just park 9 months out of the year smack dab in front of your home. We have to look at it differently and say that it is far more common for kids to drive to school, especially in high school, far more common for them to drive than ride a bus or get dropped off or carpool. We just have to build schools with more parking.
And this is for juniors and seniors, right? Because you have to be 16 years old to drive anyway.
Yeah.
So you're looking at mainly juniors and seniors. That's a lot of parking spots if they're all driving individually.
Yeah, and
that's a lot.
It is a lot. You'll have 1,500 kids in a school, and your sophomores will all be kind of coming into the driving over their sophomore year. So you're gaining more and more throughout.
But they don't give out, if I remember, I'm trying to think back a long time. My youngest graduated in 2018, but they don't give out parking passes to the 16-year-old sophomore, right?
Yeah, it's the worst because then you're forcing the 16-year-old sophomore new driver to park in a neighborhood or to park at a church. That's not right. They should be able to park at the school, because when you're parking across the street or somewhere else, you might be crossing dangerously. We need to have enough spots for kids.
And if you're the homeowner on the opposite end of this issue and they're parking in front of your mailbox every day, and as the Provo City Council's pointed out, it's like you can't get your mail delivered day after day after day because the U.S. Postal Service is like, we won't do it because the cars are blocking it. That gets to be frustrating too. And they said it would be days sometimes when they wouldn't get their mail. Well, yeah, because, school goes Monday through Friday. You're not getting your mail Monday through Friday, possibly. So at Timpview, the rule is, the ordinance is now for the Provo City Council is that if you park in front of a mailbox, they're going to start with the warning, and then they're going to eventually level up to actual tickets.
Here's an unpopular opinion for every football coach out there. Lose the practice field. Lose the football practice field.
That's not going to happen, Dave.
Tear it down.
It's not going to
More
happen.
parking.
It's just not going to happen. They're not going to give up the football practice field. They don't even let the baseball players practice on the football practice field. Why would they give it up for a parking
like 3
lot?
months out of the year.
Make it a concrete jungle. Hey, straight ahead, Maria's up next with all the day's news, of course, and there's been a video released where State Representatives Phil Lyman, who ran for the GOP nomination for governor, and Democrat Brian King have released a video.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon. KSL News Time is 12 o'clock noon, and this